evening to this honorable house. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank you for to, while I present on this year's budget estimates under the theme, partnering to build the platform for sustainable growth and development. Mr. Speaker, let me first commend my colleague, Honorable Dr. McIntyre, Mr. Speaker, for an excellent presentation on the budget last Friday. Dr. Mark gave us a financial prescription, Mr. Speaker, that would bring this country to further prosperity, Mr. Speaker. On June 27, the IMF Article 4 consultation, Mr. Speaker, the Dominican economy has recovered strongly. Following the pandemic shock, Dominica's economic outlook is positive, predicated on continued recovery in tourism and the implementation of the country's economic modernization and resilience building agenda. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the conclusion of the IMF clearly describes the success of the 2023-2024 fiscal year, and I must commend the Honorable Prime Minister, the Minister for Finance, the Financial Secretary, the cabinet colleagues, my cabinet colleagues, the public servants, the private sector, all Dominicans who have put hard work in and sacrifice to build this beautiful country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we do not sit on the sixth floor and just decide that we're going to do a budget. This process was done with extensive consultation with a wide cross-section of society, including our young people. We had businesses, we had farmers, we had agro-processors, tourism, and a range of Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, contributed to this year's budget, as they did in previous years. Mr. Speaker, I am profoundly encouraged by the performance of this Labour Party administration. Just when we were beginning to breathe a sign of relief, Mr. Speaker, from the 2008 crisis, we got hit by Erica in 2015. Shortly after Erica, we got hit by Hurricane Maria. We were told that we would not recover for several decades. Mr. Speaker, 2 years after Hurricane Maria, we were hit with the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in the Middle East. Sometimes, Mr. Speaker, the opposition and elements in the opposition say that we are making excuses and always revisiting these events. Mr. Speaker, just a few days ago, President Joe Biden announced he was stepping aside. He stated on Sunday, July 21st, 2024, paragraph 2, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, "Together we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression." Mr. Speaker, I want to take that again. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Mr. Speaker, our small island Dominica was not spared. These destructive effects impact our social and economic landscape on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker. Had it not been for the commitment of the Honorable Prime Minister and my cabinet colleagues and all the patriotic Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, we can say with confidence that we are weathering the storms and our people are living in dignity. We continue to remain laser focused, Mr. Speaker, on our economic and social progress. Mr. Speaker, we kept all families fed. We ensured that the vulnerable among us had proper shelter, ensured that they had access to basic utilities, including water and electricity. On deep reflection, Mr. Speaker, on this year's theme, it occurred to me that this Labour Party administration has been the most revolutionary in our policies. Mr. Speaker, agriculture. Over the last 5 years, Mr. Speaker, we hear nothing is happening. We continue to spend millions in that industry. by providing grants, tools, infrastructure, soft loans, grants being made available to our agro-processors so that they can add value to all our produce, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we heard this morning the excellent presentation from the Minister for Tourism. We are building more rooms. The cable car project is ongoing in the Roseau Valley. We have the cruise village to be constructed, the marina, Mr. Speaker, the international airport. Mr. Speaker, 15 years ago, you would not know what is an Airbnb. You would not hear that too. Airbnb, Mr. Speaker. Air. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this is another avenue where a number of Dominicans are earning extra income, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the tourism sector is taking shape, Mr. Speaker, and we in the Northeast, I hope the member for Marigot can join me while we get our fair share of that pie, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, small business. Mr. Speaker, no government in the history since our independence have provided the level of support to the small business community, Mr. Speaker. We have formed a small business unit in 2008-2009, Mr. Speaker, providing support to every small business in Dominica. Outside of providing the necessary support that these small businesses need, Mr. Speaker, we are providing millions of dollars at concessionary rates, Mr. Speaker, to these small businesses. Mr. Speaker, we cannot forget these interventions. Mr. Speaker, we heard from the Honorable Dr. Vince Henderson this morning. The geothermal plant is being constructed, Mr. Speaker. If you go to the valley, you will see the physical work being done on the geothermal plant, Mr. Speaker. And what does this mean for the ordinary man, Mr. Speaker? Cheaper electricity. If you are going into manufacturing, the cost will be lower. Your hotel costs would be lower, Mr. Speaker. Whatever it is that you're going to do and requires electricity, it will be lower, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we often hear that people are leaving the country and going overseas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I worked on the geothermal project for 2.5 years, Mr. Speaker. A wonderful group of people there. And we must commend Mr. Fred John, Mr. Speaker. A returning Dominican who has come back to make his contribution in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, we hear about young people, Mr. Speaker. We always hear about young people and what are we doing for our young people. Mr. Speaker, at the geothermal company, we have a young man who studied geothermal in New Zealand and Iceland, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Dalton Elwa, from the constituency of Lapland, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know for a fact that he can leave the country if he wants to, Mr. Speaker, but he is here making a contribution, Mr. Speaker, and those young people must be commended for the efforts that they are making, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our CBI program. Some persons believe that the CBI program started under this Labour Party. But Mr. Speaker, in 1993, there was the CBI program. It may have had a different name at the time under the Ms. Charles administration. But Mr. Speaker, under the United Workers' Party, there was the CBI program. But Mr. Speaker, Dominicans only began to see the fruits of the CBI, Mr. Speaker, when the Honorable Prime Minister transformed and reintroduced that program in 2014, Mr. Speaker. And for the first time, Mr. Speaker, in decades, we can see how the CBI funds are being used. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the homes. We have seen the modern hospital. We have seen all the health and wellness centers, Mr. Speaker. We have seen the caregivers being paid from the CBI, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CBI funds are being used to support our elderly, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the over 65 non-contributory pension, Mr. Speaker, I don't think sometimes we as Dominicans understand what this means to our elderly persons, Mr. Speaker. You have in the farming communities of Marigot, Wesley, Woodford Hill, and Calibishi, you have homes, Mr. Speaker, Husband was a farmer, wife was a stay-at-home mom slash farmer, and they have no income. The only money that they receive is from subsistence farming and the non-contributory pension, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in a home where you have a husband and a wife, that is $630 that the government is putting into that home. And Mr. Speaker, we sit on Facebook and we say, but 600, what, that's what, 225 US, 225 Canadian, a few £100, Mr. Speaker, but we are not sending it to our relatives. Mr. Speaker, a number of elderly persons, Mr. Speaker, are left to fend for themselves because, Mr. Speaker, the reality is children who are born to greener pastures are saying to them, Mr. Speaker, I have my own commitments and I cannot send anything for you. And that is the reality that our elderly persons are living in, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very much grateful for this intervention, Mr. Speaker, and a number of my constituents, Mr. Speaker, for a small constituency as Wesley, including Woodford Hill, we have over 150 elderly persons who are benefiting from this program, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen what was done following Maria with the CBI. We paid private sector employees so that the private sector businesses could stay afloat, Mr. Speaker. During COVID, we encouraged businesses to keep the employees while we provide support through the NEP program, Mr. Speaker. So every sector in the society, Mr. Speaker, have seen the benefits of the CBI program. Mr. Speaker, the opposition does not always tell you that 25 years ago, they did this and they did that. Mr. Speaker, it is easy. It is easy for them to come here and sit, Mr. Speaker. It is easy for them to dress, put on their clothes, Mr. Speaker. We heard Senator Reid banging down the table, Mr. Speaker, on Monday in support of Honorable Charles, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, when it was time to show loyalty, commitment, compassion, Mr. Speaker, they showed Honorable Charles their true colors, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, where is the honesty and integrity in what they did to Honorable Charles, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, they talk about young people, Mr. Speaker. All of them are gainfully employed, Mr. Speaker. They are living their best life as young people in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, what I would like the general public to take note of, Mr. Speaker, is just imagine the level of treachery and dishonesty, Mr. Speaker, if we had these 6 members as part of any cabinet, Mr. Speaker, in the Commonwealth of Dominica. Mr. Speaker, there's another arm, there's just one, that's one arm, Mr. Speaker, the opposition element. You have another arm, Mr. Speaker, that they are on Facebook every day. They talk loud, they make a lot of noise, Mr. Speaker. They are experts on everything. They know everything. And they know everything about everything, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, let us look at it. If you look at each one of them, Mr. Speaker, each one of these people, Mr. Speaker, what have they accomplished? Where are they now, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we get the examples of empty barrels, Mr. Speaker. And that's all it is, Mr. Speaker. Empty barrels, Mr. Speaker. And we know the saying, empty barrels make a lot of noise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we heard several persons saying that the housing has stopped and the sites are abandoned, Mr. Speaker. But I can tell you that in the Woodford Hill, in the area that we call Small Farm, Mr. Speaker, we are progressing nicely. If you stop there, Mr. Speaker, you will see that we started to paint a few of our buildings, Mr. Speaker. We are building 16 3-bedroom homes, Mr. Speaker. If you stop there and you look, Mr. Speaker, excellent view, Mr. Speaker, walking distance from the playing field, walking distance from the credit union, Mr. Speaker. And the people of Woodford Hill will be soon moving into these homes, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to this, Mr. Speaker. We disregard sometimes the amount of money that this government is putting into the pockets of ordinary Dominicans. We have seen the results of the HRP, Mr. Speaker. Hundreds of homes being distributed free of charge. 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, you're in a shelter or you're taking a little rest by somebody. The following day, you wake up and you are now a homeowner with an asset in excess of $200,000, Mr. Speaker, without a loan. We forget that this administration, regularized squatters and gave dollars a square foot, Mr. Speaker. A few years ago, if any one of us could drive through Jimmet, Hillsborough Gardens, Canefield East, all of these communities, Mr. Speaker, this administration sold land at concessionary rates. And Mr. Speaker, if the opposition elements don't know, when they're going home tonight, look up at Fokole, drive through Canefield East, you would see the impressive housing stock that this government was able to create the environment, Mr. Speaker. I'm not saying that we build houses for these people, but we created an environment where these people could afford a mortgage by affording the land, Mr. Speaker. We sometimes forget. In 2010, Mr. Speaker, I built my first home. Interest rate was 8%. 14 years later, Mr. Speaker, you can now get a mortgage for 4.5%, Mr. Speaker. 4.5%, and it's across the board for all the citizens of this country. Mr. Speaker, you know you're a businessman. You know the savings on a few $100,000 when your interest rate drops by 3.5%, Mr. Speaker. And that, Mr. Speaker, is all because the government, this Labour Party government, continues to create an environment for our people to thrive. Mr. Speaker, we could go on about the housing assistance that we gave out, we talk about young people, but we forget, Mr. Speaker, that we continue to assist young persons who are building first-time homeowners with a $10,000 grant, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, like the previous opposition, this one is no different. We come, we speak, and then we disappear. So Senator Paris is not there this evening, Mr. Speaker. But that is what we are doing for the young people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we can drive around the country, Mr. Speaker, and we can see the housing stock. Mr. Speaker, we often hear about young professionals and what it is that this government is doing for young professionals, and many young people are leaving the country. Mr. Speaker, permit me to break down over the years what we have done as it relates to income tax, Mr. Speaker. A home where you have a husband and a wife, Mr. Speaker, average salary just over $4,000, Mr. Speaker, you're looking at just over $100,000. Mr. Speaker, outside of the value-added tax, which is based on consumption, that entire $100,000 for that family, Mr. Speaker, based on your commitment, can be tax-free. Each resident in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, is allowed $30,000. The first $30,000 you make is tax-free. So the husband gets $30,000, the wife gets $30,000, Mr. Speaker. We had $60,000. Then you have the mortgage interest up to $30,000. So we already, Mr. Speaker, we had $90,000 tax-free. Mr. Speaker, in 2002, we introduced a cap of $5,000 for student loans, Mr. Speaker, whether you're the student or the parent paying the interest. That cap has moved from $5,000 to unlimited. A few years ago, we added homeowner interest, insurance, and health insurance. So when you add average homeowner insurance, $5,000, health insurance, $60,000, Mr. Speaker, you have a family, Mr. Speaker, husband and wife, earning in excess of $100,000. The first $100,000 our young professionals are making in this country, Mr. Speaker, is tax-free. Mr. Speaker, we are the education government. There's no doubt about that, Mr. Speaker. We have revolutionized access to education in Dominica. Let the doctors, the architects, the engineers who have gone to school in Cuba say that there is no value in the education revolution, Mr. Speaker. Let the students who receive the 40% waiver, Mr. Speaker, say that there is no revolution in education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's important that we remind persons what existed before, Mr. Speaker. I was not so fortunate. I had to take a loan in 2003 to go to school. Mr. Speaker, at the time, the interest rate was 10%. 10% interest rate, Mr. Speaker. But we have students who have received financial support. They are in Grambling, they are in Midwestern, they are in UWI. They are in countries across the world studied because of this Labour Party government and the assistance that we were able to provide, Mr. Speaker, through the Citizenship by Investment program. Mr. Speaker, we have more lawyers now than ever before. On every corner of roads, Mr. Speaker, you will see a shingle. The AG chambers, Mr. Speaker, have more lawyers than they have ever had before. And that is because of the level of investments, Mr. Speaker, over the past 10 years, Mr. Speaker, that we have made in the students of Dominica and the young people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and let's not forget our nurses, our teachers, all our public servants where we have created access for them and funding, Mr. Speaker, to attend the UWI Open Campus. The ministries have more degrees than they have ever had before, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I came out from school, it took me 7 years before I could own my first vehicle, Mr. Speaker, because I had a student loan where the installment was $1,300 a month. $1,300 a month, Mr. Speaker. Now, in 2024, Mr. Speaker, you have students coming out from school, no student loan. So they are able now, Mr. Speaker, to take a mortgage, buy a vehicle, Mr. Speaker, and live their best life. But we hear that we are not doing anything for the young people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are constructing schools, Mr. Speaker, and I would just like to take the opportunity to thank the People's Republic of China, Mr. Speaker. They have been an excellent partner in terms of infrastructure, health, education, agriculture, the digital economy, Mr. Speaker. My deepest gratitude to the People's Republic of China. Mr. Speaker, when you hear building, it brings into sharp focus the Ministry of Public Works, Public Utilities, and the digital economy. Infrastructure serves as a foundation for a nation's economy by providing the necessary physical and social systems for sustained growth and development. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my dear colleague who works in the ministry with me, Mr. Speaker, hand in glove, the Honorable Shakira Hippolyte, Mr. Speaker. I'll also like to thank the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Emil Lancelot, the SAO, and all the staff members, Mr. Speaker, who go the extra mile within the ministry to ensure that we do the work. Mr. Speaker, when we think of this year's team partnering to build platforms for sustainable growth and development, we must agree that our investment in the digital economy is a critical step in that direction, Mr. Speaker. We live in exciting times. We hear of artificial intelligence, big data, fintech. Mr. Speaker, this is what is driving the world today. So the government felt it was fit, Mr. Speaker, that we get our people involved in this sector, Mr. Speaker, which is why we contracted a loan, over 75 million EC dollars, Mr. Speaker, for the development of the digital economy. Now, what does this mean, Mr. Speaker, for the ordinary person, Mr. Speaker? We all heard of Amazon, we all heard of eBay, Mr. Speaker, and those are platforms where our young people can make their products and sell. Many of us, Mr. Speaker, do not know that there's a whole economy online in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, where our young people are creating products and they are selling it, they are shipping it out, and the money comes in via PayPal in the digital wallet, Mr. Speaker. From the digital wallet, it hits their bank account. And that is the economy, the digital economy that we are strengthening, Mr. Speaker. In the rural parts of Dominica, you have a number of persons involved in the pumpkin flower, the turmeric powder, and all these herbs, Mr. Speaker. The goal of this project is to get all these projects on the digital platform, Mr. Speaker, so that they can be sold. Essential oils, Mr. Speaker, the coconut oil and the castor oil, that is big money now, Mr. Speaker. And we're hoping that a number of young people can take advantage of the opportunities that we are presenting. Within the ministry, Mr. Speaker, and this Labour Party administration, internet is not a want anymore, Mr. Speaker. It's a need. And we have not only created the access, Mr. Speaker, so that persons can have access to the internet, fiber, Mr. Speaker, but we have made it affordable for all Dominicans, Mr. Speaker. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we did Net for All. Net for All is a package in partnership with the NTRC, where if you have an income of under $2,500, you get a package for $10, Mr. Speaker. And if you speak to the users of that program, they tell you, yes, it's working. Mr. Speaker, last week, Monday, we handed over check, Mr. Speaker, real money, to the tune of $968,000 to over 77 businesses. We're talking soap production, honey production, furniture production, vodka production, and the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, another investment. We hear about things being tight, things being difficult. Last week, Monday, $986,000 in the hands of 77 small business owners across the country. The digital economy also takes in consideration the public sector, Mr. Speaker, and this is why we recently relaunched our e-services. You can go online, get your death certificates, your marriage certificates, your permits and other services from anywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker. You can go online and pay for it. What we are working on right now, Mr. Speaker, is to see how it is you can go online, not only pay, but how we could deliver that certificate, that license to your doorstep, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the HMIS, we heard this morning from Senator Paris that it was not budgeted for. I'm not a teacher, Mr. Speaker. I've never been. I think I've passed the stage for that, but I would like to urge the good student, Senator Paris, to go to page 408, and under the head D52 Public Works, you would see it there, Mr. Speaker, that the HMIS system has been budgeted for, Mr. Speaker. It's a 3-year implementation program, so the first installment is $5.8 million. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you didn't see it. I don't know. All through his statement, Mr. Speaker, we heard the words honesty and transparency. Honesty and transparency. So, Mr. Speaker, he could stand up now and tell us if he did not see it, if he was being malicious, Mr. Speaker, or he was just being dishonest and not transparent with us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, he's following the footsteps of his mentor, the former parent, Mr. Speaker, so we will leave that alone, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we talk about young people, and we heard this over and over, young people. Ongoing, Mr. Speaker, we have over 300 young Dominicans across different sectors who have signed up, Mr. Speaker, for our training program.
Honorable Minister, which page? You said 408?
408, yes, Mr. Speaker.
And what is it?
HMIS, under other services.
Under other services. But you see, these are important things to clarify. Yes. Because if we have the estimates and we are saying that it is not in it, I think we need to really, that's why I say this is serious business. Because if the public think it is not there, but you are saying it is there and he's saying it is not there, I just wanted to make sure it is there. Okay, let's continue.
So you have seen it, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on this side, we are honest and transparent always, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we'll be training over 300 young persons, Mr. Speaker, in CompTIA fundamentals, CompTIA A+, and CompTIA Network Plus, Mr. Speaker. Over 300 Dominicans, Mr. Speaker. And this, Mr. Speaker, what we'll be doing with this training program is we'll be paying for the tuition. So all these persons will receive their login and they'll be able to go on and view the videos for the tuition. On successful completion, Mr. Speaker, of your tuition, we're going to pay for the exams for you. After we have paid for the exams, all who have successfully completed the exam, Mr. Speaker, we're going to give you a paid internship. And this is valued, and we have a budget, Mr. Speaker, just over $1 million just for that component, Mr. Speaker. There is a need not only in Dominica, Mr. Speaker, but the rest of the region for digital and information technology skills, Mr. Speaker. So you can work here, you can open your own business, or you could go overseas, Mr. Speaker. But what we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is ensuring that our young people have a chance in this thriving sector, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have the internet, Mr. Speaker, and it has become very loose. We have posts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Mr. Speaker, and as part of the program, what we'll be doing is, and what we'll be continue to do, Mr. Speaker, is to carry out training for our young persons, the elderly, to ensure that they make the best use of their devices, Mr. Speaker, and the wider web, because it's a concern. So I'm hoping that the parents, the churches, the National Youth Council, and other interested parties could partner with us on the digital economy to ensure that our children make the best use of it and they are not bullied or abused, Mr. Speaker. The investment in the digital economy, Mr. Speaker, is a significant one, and we have seen that recently with the expansion of Clay Harbor, Mr. Speaker. It was a significant investment the government made to ensure that you have Dominicans, several hundred of them, working in Dominica, but for various companies around the globe, Mr. Speaker. I believe the majority of the population will agree that this Labour Party is doing well, Mr. Speaker, in trying times. Mr. Speaker, public infrastructure is something that we often say the government must do. Last year we had two incidents or two situations on the West Coast, the EO Enabler Highway, Mr. Speaker. And just to inform the public that we have repaired them, Mr. Speaker, and I'm thankful to the work of the contractors and the staff at the ministry for that. We had the Salisbury Highway, Mr. Speaker, and just the parent might want to know that intervention, the parent was there on site, Mr. Speaker. We mobilized the same night, and we created a bypass, and we began work on that site. That is costing the government $4.3 million. It has been resurfaced, Mr. Speaker, and you no longer have to take a detour. You continue your journey straight to Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker. So I'm very pleased about that. We had the Monscope area, Mr. Speaker. That intervention, that wall, we had some administrative delays, Mr. Speaker. We were able to rectify that, and we constructed the wall. It is complete. We are doing finishing touches. That intervention is on plan, on budgeted, Mr. Speaker, and that cost us $2.3 million, Mr. Speaker. The East Coast Road is 90% complete. The major piece left to be done on that road is the Pegua Hatton Garden Bridge, Mr. Speaker, and before the end of the year, we will see completion of that road. Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the leadership of the Honorable Frederick and Honorable Alfred, Mr. Speaker, during the last couple of years. They have provided stellar leadership in the processes, and I thank them for that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I'm hoping to see is, and we have seen it on the West Coast, what the movement of people do for small businesses and commerce. It's Cannabis season, Mr. Speaker, so the West Coast is lined with young people as well as other vendors selling cannabis. If you pass there sometimes, you get fresh cut flowers, you get roast corn, you get roast plantain, you get roast bakes, you get titi with Mr. Speaker. And that is what happens when you create a road network that allow people to travel freely, Mr. Speaker. Now, I'm hoping that the same thing is replicated in the Cannabis and Kalinago territory, and we have already seen an increase in visitors to that space, Mr. Speaker. And what I'm urging the people of the Kalinago territory to come out and take advantage of the increased visitors that they would have been seeing coming in the area. Mr. Speaker, I must thank the people of the Kalinago territory and Cannabis for their understanding, Mr. Speaker. It was not an easy project, but we did pull it off, and we are almost complete. The residents of Cannabis, Deepa, Tranto, Moto, Petit Soufriere, San Souve, Good Hope, Atkinson, Forblay, Mr. Speaker, for their patience and their understanding in the process, Mr. Speaker. I think by now, Mr. Speaker, they forget the challenges and they're enjoying the nice road and they do the road nice, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2 weeks, the Minister for Finance informed me that they will be signing a contract for the Lobia to Bagatelle Road. What we will see, Mr. Speaker, I would just like to urge the commuters on the road to bear patience with us. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we'll be meeting with them. We'll be having consultations with them to ensure that motorists and residents in the area, Mr. Speaker, have a smooth transition during the time of the project. Mr. Speaker, that's another opportunity for a number of young persons to be employed. We continue to put money in the pockets of our young men and food on tables, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we heard from the member for Roseau, Honorable Popon Skerrit, the Roseau enhancement, Mr. Speaker. Last November, we passed the loan in this honorable house for 110 million EC dollars. We'll be doing 6 streets. And Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to have this project. We're going to see a boost of the aesthetics and the infrastructure in the city. And Mr. Speaker, property owners will be happy because the value of their property will increase when you have a modern city, Mr. Speaker. And we are also working on a safe city. So we'll be digitizing parts of Roto, Mr. Speaker, but that is something we'll speak about in the coming future. Mr. Speaker, we often get a lot of blows for the Public Works Corporation, but Mr. Speaker, I would like to take some time to commend the men and the women of the Public Works Corporation for the hard work that they do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a taxi driver called me the other day and he told me that, Grant, there's a pothole on the Concord Street, Mr. Speaker. Meaning one pothole, Mr. Speaker. Because they are not accustomed to seeing these things, Mr. Speaker, and that is because the Public Works Corporation and a few of the good contractors we have, Mr. Speaker, are constantly out, Mr. Speaker, patching the roads, and they must be commended for this. Mr. Speaker, it's always good when you have persons from outside of the country giving you commendations, and we have seen that the last weekend with the Bike Fest, Mr. Speaker. I must commend the organizers, the Ministry of Tourism, the Parish for Roseau Central. A number of bikers commended the country, Mr. Speaker, for the road network. A road show, Mr. Speaker, as it's called, a road show, will not be possible without a good road. So the rehabilitation and the maintenance of our road is a top priority for the ministry, and we hope that the users, Mr. Speaker, the bikers, the motorists, the pedestrians, the joggers, the cyclists, all of them, Mr. Speaker, while using the road, exercise caution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the WASCO is a hot topic, but my colleague, Ms. Minister Lockhart, will deal with that, Mr. Speaker. And all I will say on the matter, Mr. Speaker, water is not free. Water is not free. And I would like to urge all users to go to the WASCO and pay your water bills. Water is not free. It is not free. Mr. Speaker, we can all go to the river and we can pull our containers and go home. If we see where some of the intakes are and the night that some of these workers have to be out, ensuring that we have potable drinking water, Mr. Speaker. They must be commended for the work that they do, Mr. Speaker. So I urge all Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, to go and pay your water bill. Mr. Mr. Speaker, the international airport. Again, Mr. Speaker, we come to the parliament and we lead with Mr. Speaker, we heard Senator Parrish trying to imply that I heard it was 300 and now it's in 150. Mr. Speaker, let me just clarify. You have over 300 workers, Mr. Speaker, of different nationalities on the airport. So you have the Dominicans, you have the Chinese, you have the Indonesians, Mr. Speaker. What you have, Mr. Speaker, is over 150 locals. Locals. So there is no downsizing and work hasn't slowed down. I extend an invitation to Senator Paris, the member for Margot can join him. Let us go and see, Mr. Speaker. Let us go and see for yourself the work. Have you been, Honorable Charles? Huh? Have you seen this site? Have you gotten a tour of this site? Not see. Have you gotten a tour? And also the So, Mr. Speaker, and he did not take along Senator Paris, but I think he should. Because to say that work has slowed down, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, one of the young men working on the project said, Mr. Grant, Bossman, we're casting the final column today. And you see this steel work being done, Mr. Speaker. Young men, Mr. Speaker, if you drive through Wesley on a normal day, anyone who is sitting on the streets of Wesley is because they do not want to work. And that is the reality, Mr. If you are sitting on the streets of Wesley between 8 and 5, it's because that is by choice. The Honorable Minister for Finance, Mr. Speaker, put out a challenge to us that with 500,000 visitors, that we should prepare ourselves. And Mr. Speaker, that speaks volume to our farmers, our small business, the young people. There are endless opportunities for us in the Wesley constituency. Mr. Speaker, I know for a fact, I have seen the pay slips. I mean, people come up to me and they tell me, what's man? 3-5 every month, clockwork. I nice. We have persons in all different positions. We have our young ladies in the office doing administrative work. We have cleaners, we have laborers, we have truck drivers, we have guys learning to do the soil testing at the lab. The security, Mr. Speaker, the security firm for the airport construction site, that is run by 2 gentlemen, one from Wesley, one from Woodford Hill. We have over 30 persons from the constituency working, Mr. Speaker. So those are numbers and facts, Mr. Speaker. I did a rough calculation, Mr. Speaker, and you're looking at just about $250,000 based on the number of persons in the constituency that are working on the site, Mr. Speaker. Based on what they are making and based on the numbers, that is the money that is circulating between Wesley, Woodford Hill, and some of it goes to Margot, Mr. Speaker. But that money, when we heard Senator Paris talk about the airport is building and the financial institutions are not benefiting, Mr. Speaker, the people of Wesley, Woodford Hill, Mr. You know what they save? Margot Credit Union. So the credit unions are benefiting directly from the international airport. Yes. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Charles said that school children are leaving Wesley Primary School because of issues. Mr. Speaker, that is not true. That is not true, Mr. Speaker. And I cannot stand here and have the members say that. From time to time, you have parents who would have moved. So you have a few parents, Mr. Speaker, who have moved to Woodford Hill. They have moved to Concord. Mr. Speaker, a 5-year-old child, 5, 6, you're going to put them to stand on the roadside in Concord next to the primary school and send them to Wesley? That makes no sense. So they have transferred their children to the schools closest to them, Mr. Speaker. And it's not because of any issues at the primary school. I meet on a regular basis with the principal, the PTA, the teachers. Mr. Speaker, I am on the ground and I'm in touch with the constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as per rep, my concern is just jobs, Mr. Speaker. Jobs, 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 jobs. So with this airport coming, Mr. Speaker, I did not share them with Senator Paris, so he doesn't know. But the plan, Mr. Speaker, that we have as a cabinet, and the plan that I have as a parent, is every position at that international airport is to put somebody from Wesley, Mr. Speaker. That is the goal, Mr. Speaker. So whatever role it is, Mr. Speaker, we are getting our people equipped, Mr. Speaker, and we will make it happen. Mr. Speaker, we have already started, you know. We have a number, since becoming Parrep, we have a number of young persons who are already at Douglas Charles working, learning, Mr. Speaker, and I must take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Charles Pemberton, the PS of Tourism, and the CEO ban. Because, Mr. Speaker, once I meet them, what you have at the airport for me? That is all I'm concerned about, Mr. Speaker. What do you have at the airport for me? Because, Mr. Speaker, what is happening is that at Douglas Charles, you get trained, and you're going to be transferred to the international airport. So when you start off at entry level now at Douglas Charles, Mr. Speaker, when the airport is built, you will be able to take a senior position, Mr. Speaker, at the international airport. I urge our young people in high school, in the college, Speaker, be diligent in their work because there are opportunities on the horizon for them. Mr. Speaker, the international airport is going to work wonders for farmers, Mr. Speaker. You can leave Simpa, Captain Bruce, and in 5-10 minutes, you're on the tarmac with your fresh produce shipping to Miami, Mr. Speaker. That is the discussions that we are having in the Wesley constituency. How do I prepare myself to benefit? Mr. Speaker, the same farmers who are telling you agriculture is dead, every week they buy in and they sell it. Every week, if you stand by the roadside, you see dumper loads of produce going down to Longhouse. But they're telling you, Mr. Speaker, there's no money. Because, Mr. Speaker, it's business. Agriculture is a business. So if I block you from coming in, it means more money for me. You know? So that is what opposition elements are doing, Mr. Speaker. He knows. Look at the smile on his face. You're making money, my brother. You're making money. You need more. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are doing in the Wesley constituency, Mr. Speaker, is positioning our farmers, our young people. You know, even the women, Mr. Speaker, there's a market for fresh cut flowers, Mr. Speaker. I see the house is looking first class. And Mr. Speaker, what I hope is that we not only can provide to the house, Mr. Speaker, but we can ship overseas, Mr. Speaker. So we are getting our young women trained in horticulture so that we can provide fresh cut flowers to the hotels. And that is the vision that we have. So, Mr. Speaker, what are we doing? The first step, Mr. Speaker, the government has decided that we're going to lease land because we have an issue with land, Mr. Speaker. Persons are saying they do not have land. So we are providing a lease for persons who are interested. We have several hundred acres of land in the Wesley area, Mr. Speaker, and this, we already start receiving applications. So, Mr. If you are in the Wesley area and you're interested in farming, you don't have land, we'll assist you. If you're interested in getting startup capital, we'll assist you as well with the aid bank and the 3% financing. Mr. Speaker, Extension officers got a brand new vehicle, I understand. I thank the Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Rui, for that, because what it means now, providing effective assistance to our farmers across the Northeastern District. So if you have the land, you have concessionary financing, and you have technical assistance. Everything that you need to make money. Mr. Speaker, the member for Marigot said that people are not getting their money. We still owe people for their land again, Mr. Speaker. It is good for the member to inform himself. Mr. Speaker, negotiation is private. I am fortunate that I have a good relationship with a number of homeowners and landowners. But, Mr. Speaker, you have family situations where there's no win, and the family is fighting. And the government is doing its best to assist and get the situation resolved. Mr. Speaker, there are checks in the Treasury that persons cannot pick up because it is in the estate of. Now, if it is in the estate of, whatever the individual, and there is no will, you have to do letters of administration, Mr. Speaker. So there are a number, I know for a fact, Honorable Charles, there are a number of situations, there are checks at the Treasury, but there is no will. And siblings are not getting along, Mr. Speaker, so the check's sitting in the Treasury. But you're informed. All right. Mr. Speaker, there have been this, I believe that the Wesley people who had to move, they worked hard, Mr. Speaker, and I support them in their cause to get their titles. And we have been working with the AG's chambers. I spoke to a few of the persons who moved to the Joe Burton area, and they have started to receive their titles. So I thank the AG chambers and OPM for that, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we are making progress, Mr. Speaker, and we are resolving issues. Mr. Speaker, you have a major project, over 70 owners moved, Mr. Speaker, and no demonstration. Wesley, it means that the government treated the people of Wesley with dignity, and they treated them fairly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I must say thank you, as I have done in the past, to all the constituents who are affected, whether it's by the dust, whether by the blasting, Mr. Speaker, whether the persons who want to move, whether for your home or for agriculture purposes. I would like to say thank you on behalf of the government for your sacrifice. And I think that not just Wesley, but the country is better for the sacrifices that the people of Wesley have made, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because of the construction of the international airport, the community is buzzing. You have a number of young persons who have started business, and the business is booming. Dr. Mack indicated, along with the Minister for Tourism, that we are looking at 500,000 visitors. And we need to put this into context, Mr. Speaker. So a visitor lands at the international airport, they're going to need a taxi or a tour operator.
Your mic. Yeah, but you have 7 more minutes.
10.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honorable Grant be given an extra 10 minutes.
The Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the Honorable Minister be given an additional 10 minutes. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Grant, you are given an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to my colleagues for the extra time. Mr. Speaker, with the international airport, we're going to need a lot of time. But, Mr. Speaker, to the point of what this means for our small business. So a visitor comes in, you're going to need a taxi, you're going to need a tour operator or a rental, Mr. Speaker, to move around. That is an opportunity for a business. You're going to need an Airbnb. You're going to need somewhere to sleep. That is somewhere, that's another opportunity. You're going to need to eat, whether you buy from a restaurant, whether you buy your own food in the grocery store, in the mini mart. But it means that every visitor that comes in means that we are going to generate additional income for our constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a number of young businesses in the constituency, Mr. Speaker. We have a number of rental companies who some of them are new, some of them are old, but Mr. Speaker, you can see they're replenishing their fleet in anticipation of the international airport. Mr. Speaker, we have a young lady from the community of Woodford Hill. Must congratulate her. She's doing pretty well, Mr. Speaker. My good friend Giri from Yada Car Rental, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, there's no government intervention. All I do, I take my rental once in a while to support Mr. Speaker. That is what I can do as par rep. But she's doing well, Mr. Speaker. Another young person, and they must be commended for that. Then, Mr. Speaker, we have Dollar Stretch, a mini mart owned by another young man doing well, Mr. Speaker. You see the number of persons who are frequenting the shop, Mr. Speaker. And I mean, we live in a community people don't want to tell Mr. Speaker, but quietly they are saying I'm making money. Mr. Speaker, we have in Wesley, we have one of the main restaurants and snack it owned by Miss Geraldine Collier, Mrs. And her daughter. Her daughter does, it's a mother-daughter combination, Mr. Speaker. The daughter does fresh juices. Mr. Speaker, by 2:30 everything is sold out. Everything is sold out. And Mr. Speaker, and what we hope in that is that maybe she can move into a night shift because persons the community is growing and employ a fewer persons. So Mr. Speaker, you can see the trend in terms of creating opportunities, creating jobs, and creating wealth for our citizens, Mr. Speaker. You have another supermarket, all you need, Mr. Speaker, recently opened in Woodford Hill, is doing quite well. And Mr. Speaker, by another young lady. So, Mr. Speaker, the community is buzzing with activities and business ventures. Mr. Speaker, we have Josiah Russell from Boldface Vodka, Mr. Speaker, another young man from the community of Woodford Hill. Mr. Speaker, I mean, we often hear about our young men. They are not doing much, Mr. Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, I would just like to take this opportunity to commend a young man from the community of Woodford Hill. Mr. Speaker, he's involved in a number of things, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the most popular DJ in the Northeast, Mr. Speaker. DJ Pocket, Mr. Speaker. Ron Edwards. Mr. Speaker, we have to commend the young men, Mr. Speaker, when they are doing well. So in the morning he's a farmer, Mr. Speaker. In the afternoon, he has this little gym, Mr. Speaker. The membership is growing. Mr. Speaker, in the night, and maybe one day, Mr. Speaker, you can make a turn on a Friday, Saturday night. Impact Nightclub, Mr. Speaker, in Woodford Hill. So, Mr. Speaker, if you see that, you have the taxi, you have the rental, you have the supermarkets, you have the nightlife, you have the snackets, you can see how the community is taking shape and would benefit significantly from the international airport, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend all the young people from the Wesley, Woodford Hill, and Palm Tree area that are doing well for themselves, Mr. Speaker. We have a number of persons who have said to me, Parep, I see the airport building, I need my lot, Mr. Speaker. We heard from the member for Roseau Central, the Minister for Housing. We have a number to date, Mr. Speaker. We have just over 50 applications, but we have enough lots for all these young persons, the young policemen, the firemen, the nurses who are interested in owning a piece of Wesley. So, Mr. Speaker, we are creating generational wealth. Mr. Speaker, I hope in this fiscal year, along with the West and Woodford Hill Village Council, Mr. Speaker, form a tourism committee, because we have a number of sites in the area, and that is one of the missing elements to the constituency, having a tourism product that we can package. So I'm hoping that the Minister for Tourism in this fiscal year, along with her staff, can come up and meet with us. Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, the Woodford Hill Beach, we experienced some difficulties. Mr. Speaker, I am a person I like to go by the book. We experienced an issue with a landowner who has land very close to the beach, so we were not able to construct our huts. But we have the designs, we have the costings, and we have the funding, Mr. Speaker. So as soon as that issue is rectified, we will be building our huts. We have the Hodges River, Mr. Speaker. Nice place for a river line. We're hoping to do some work with the Woodford Village Council on cleaning up that river along. You can come and have your picnic and so on. Mr. Speaker, the Northeast is a nice drive on the Imperial Road. And then when you get there, nice atmosphere, nice loving people, so that you can just share. We're hoping to do the same in an area they call Dam at Londonderry, Mr. Speaker, around the Wesley Village Council. You clean it up, Mr. Speaker, so you can come on a Saturday, on a Sunday afternoon with your family in a safe environment and take a river bath. So, Minister of Tourism, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Wesley constituency in the new fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, the Woodford Hill playing field, excellent facility, Mr. Speaker. We have lights. The lights are working, but Mr. Speaker, it's not just the lights. We have to utilize the playing field. So I am working with the village council so that we can develop a football academy, have a football program, and a possible cricket program, Mr. Speaker, so that we can get our young men engaged. Because we have the lights, so we can go a little bit later in the night. So, Mr. Speaker, Londonderry, we have the designs for the washroom. We have the costings. Mr. Speaker, we are finalizing funding, so we should see the washroom facilities constructed on Londonderry very soon. Mr. Speaker, the NEP program, I must commend my NEP team. Miss Anita, Miss Savina, Miss Liana, Miss Maxine, Mr. Speaker, all these people continue to work hard to ensure that the community is clean, the schools are clean, our caregivers, Mr. Speaker, we provide care to the elderly, our supervisor, Miss Rosie. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we dismiss the NEP program or we make fun of it, but it has empowered a lot of persons in the rural areas, specifically our women. We have empowered women, we have given them a sense of confidence, where some of them can now go out and rent proper homes for their children. They can leave abusive relationships, Mr. Speaker, and that is what the NEP is doing for a number of persons, especially in the rural areas. And you have the social security benefit, Mr. Speaker. When you're sick, if you're pregnant and you make another baby, the fact that you are under the NEP and contributing to social security, that in itself, Mr. Speaker, is a benefit. Mr. Speaker, the small business people have benefited. So whenever you have an NEP in your business, it's not just an NEP. We often downplay NEP. But Mr. Speaker, for instance, you have an NEP in your business, $1,400. It means that's an investment the government is making in your business, interest-free, Mr. Speaker. So, but what I've been encouraging my NEP to do, Mr. Speaker, you work from 7 to 12 or 8 to 1. Let us see how we can utilize your afternoons to something productive, to earn extra income, maybe short-term crops, your sweet potato, your peppers, your herbs, because most of them are women. So we're hoping that, urge them to raise some rabbits, maybe a little poultry. We're hoping that we shall get some land soon, Mr. Speaker, to encourage them to do so. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, we had, in the Wesley constituency, we had this successful farmers forum, Mr. Speaker, where we had the supermarkets, the financial institution, the hucksters. And all that came out from the meeting, Mr. Speaker, is there is money for us in the Wesley constituency to make in agriculture. And I know, Mr. Speaker, I'm getting a lot of those because they heard yesterday that the member for Granby get a lot of cement from me, Mr. Speaker. So I now under pressure to fix all my feeder roads, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so I would like to give the farmers the assurance, Mr. Speaker, that this fiscal year we'll be working on a few of the farm roads, Mr. Speaker, of their choosing. They will indicate that which is a priority, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in my initial budget presentation to this House, Mr. Speaker, I explained to the nation what we were doing at Block to Farm, Mr. Speaker. Block to Farm is still doing well. We experience a little shortcoming because we had a number of young men who were trained, who were getting more money on the airport, so they left for that. But Mr. Speaker, I would just like to inform this Honorable House and the public, Mr. Speaker, that Block to Farm is very much alive. We are in discussions now with a major supermarket who would be willing to sign a contract with us and take all the produce from the farm, Mr. Speaker. So that is an excellent opportunity for our young people. So, Mr. Speaker, as time progresses, Mr. Speaker, I'll inform the general public of, of our progress. I don't have cocoa plants, no? Roland. Oh, okay. Oh. Mr. Speaker, all our social programs are very much alive in the Wesley constituency. Our school books, our uniform, our feeding programs at the school, Mr. Speaker. All our social safety nets, Mr. Speaker, the Wesley constituency is benefiting fully, Mr. Speaker. We must say thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, the Wesley constituency is a beautiful place, beautiful people, and I must commend the young village council of Woodford Hill, Mr. Speaker. They are doing good things. They are taking initiative on their own, and we have a new chairman, a young person again, Mr. Speaker, in the person of Liana Daniel, Mr. Speaker. And I must commend her for the leadership she has taken since taking up her role as chairperson of the village council. Mr. Speaker, I am here because of the support that I received from the Wesley constituency voters, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my executive, all my stalwarts, the LYU, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if Honorable Charles was there, Mr. Speaker, but last Mother's Day, we hosted our Mother's Queen show, the LWO. Mr. Speaker, it was quality that could be on the national stage, Mr. Speaker. Any of the women who participated, Mr. Speaker, they could be on the national stage, Mr. Speaker. But the event was one to create an environment where our people could come and socialize in a safe space, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the organizers for that, the LWO. Mr. Speaker, in the coming fiscal year, I will continue with the engagement of the Wesley constituency, Mr. Speaker, because the time is coming on us where the international airport will be open, Mr. Speaker, and we have to take our position as constituents in the Wesley constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my representation continues to be a sober one, Mr. Speaker, and I think the Wesley people are very grateful for that. I am on the ground, Mr. Speaker. Everybody knows where they can find grant, Mr. Speaker, how to find grant. I respond to the people, and there is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister decides to call election, maybe December again, Wesley is safe with Labour, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. May God continue to bless this great Dominica Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, and I support this measure of this year, all the measures, Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget. Thank you.
Just a note, you made an important interjection in regards to the NEP. Maybe our issue there is we keep saying, I have a NEP. You see, so you cannot really have a NEP. A person is being paid under the NEP program or the National Employment Program. So we need to change the language, just like I took a major, I would say, I went on a limb to protect how we talk about the CBI. I think maybe as parliamentarians, we need to look at how we talk about NEP, and so people can see it as an investment, a human resource investment. So, Honorable Alfred, you have the floor. You are recognized. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was looking for the stand. Can somebody tell me where it's it, Mr. James? Anyway, we'll proceed on. Okay, thank you graciously. Thank you. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I am delighted to support the national budget for the year 2024, 2025. Tonight I greet all my colleagues. I thank you for your effort. I wish I could highlight some of the things that you have done, but the time I have allotted did not even be enough for to highlight my own work. So therefore, I want to commend you and say well done in each of your ministries, and thank you for the areas where my constituents benefited. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I want to say good night to the Cannabis constituency. I know they are locked in, and I thank them for listening. Mr. Speaker, before I go into the budget, my presentation, I heard Honorable Grant try to clarify the statement about students being moved. It's my business, so I had to go and mind my business. Because if students were being moved from Wesley in large numbers, something's wrong with me. How I don't know that? So I checked it out. So in 2021, 2022, there were 117 students enrolled at Wesley. In 2022-23, 119 students. In 2023-24, 113 students. Therefore, despite the declining population in most schools, we can safely say that Wesley remains constant. So there's no large outflowing from Wesley, because I would have to go and investigate that. Also, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Charles claimed that we are copying outside style of American and Europe, our HFLE curriculum. When it comes to HFLE, I take that personally. People who know me know that I eat HFLE. So when it comes to HFLE, Mr. Speaker, the HFLE curriculums are prepared by local qualified experts and teachers, and the guides are based on the curriculum regional framework for ages 5 to 11 for primary school and 12 to 16 for secondary school. And sometimes you have to, when God created the earth, there was nobody to say, that's good. So God turned around and he said, that's good. Mr. Speaker, I am a UE certified health and family life educator. Okay? So and my eyes open on that thing, and I really appreciate his contribution. And I want my colleague to know I got that. And I come into you so we can put something together for me to go back to my past secondary school in office. Two of us going on hold there because we have some things we can do there. Right. So, Mr. Speaker, patterning to build the platform for sustainable growth and development. Mr. Speaker, this budget is robust, people-centric, and development-focused. But, Mr. Speaker, for this budget to meet and exceed expectations, we must change our attitudes and reorient our minds to be grateful for how far we have come and what we have accomplished. Truly embrace Dominica and set our priorities and needs in order. Dominicans must change the way we operate and give a fair day's work for a fair day's pay despite our political differences. Dominicans must be ready to take hard decisions. Dominicans must be honest, responsible, and accountable if we are to sustain the investments we have made and realize further growth and development. Mr. Speaker, this will necessitate a cultural shift, fostering a collective consciousness and appreciation for the changes that are required in all sectors. Mr. Speaker, if Dominica is to get to where this Labour administration wants to take it, some of us on this side have to become harder on advocacy, educating, embracing, monitoring, motivating, rebuking, refuting, rebuffing, rebutting, refusing, and rejecting. Because, Mr. Speaker, too often it is Dominicans who are hindering the work that is going on in Dominica. So when we come out there, yeah, we will go in and rebuke and refute and reject and yes. Mr. Speaker, through much adversities, we continue to persevere and skillfully manage our limited resources. All social programs continued. The National Employment Program was sustained. No cuts were made in public service. The construction industry continues to thrive. Agriculture is bouncing back. Education is taking a new meaning as our people are appreciating the fact that education is not what goes on in the classroom alone, and they're embracing skills and lifelong learning. Mr. Speaker, this administration continues to invest heavily in education, $70.7 million, the third highest allocation, reflecting 10.4% of the total budget. Mr. Speaker, despite varied challenges, the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training, and National Excellence continues to adapt to the ever-changing landscape by providing a modern education system that empowers citizens to be active and successful participants in an increasingly competitive global environment, and to prepare them for the many jobs opportunities created while the numerous capital projects are being undertaken and those that will be available when these projects are completed. Mr. Speaker, we heard all about them already. The international airport, the geothermal energy plant, the Cannabis marina, the agriculture facility at 1 Mile, and other projects and programs within the blue and green economy, the cable car, construction of 5-star hotels, and the many other areas in tourism, the construction of 7 schools, and many other opportunities in construction and education, especially the coming of the centers of excellence in Tibet and special education, the East Coast Road rehabilitation, and numerous opportunities under the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, we encourage our people, especially our students, to know about the ongoing development projects in all the different sectors, all over the island, and to align their dreams and aspirations with these, because there is room for everyone. Get on board. Get on board and help us in building this first climate resilient nation. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education works with people from birth. We have 4 roving caregivers who serve 8 communities where there is no daycare. What these people do, they deal with children from 0 to 3 years. They go to the homes, they stimulate these babies, they play games, they sing songs, puppets, colorful objects to stimulate these babies. Then, Mr. Speaker, we have approximately 1,178 3 to 5-year-olds enrolled in 87 early childhood centers all over Dominica. So the thrust to attain universal access to early childhood continues. New centers have been established at W.S. Stevens and Maho Primary School. Under the OECS Pearl for Education Advancement and Relevant Learning, we call it Pearl, we received $468,000 to upgrade 5 early childhood facilities. Work at Caleb Laura and Salibia is complete, and this is the first early childhood center in Salibia. Work began at Bacatel, and work will begin soon at Cassibruce and Laplaine. An early childhood facility at the Baroness Patricia Scotland Primary School, funded by the Maria Holder Memorial Trust, is complete. Mr. Speaker, our early childhood educators have personally developed themselves, and the government is paying attention to ensure that we put measures in place to give due relevance to the work that they do. And with funding from UNICEF, a diagnostic review of the early childhood sector was conducted, and the final drafts of the policies and standards are being reviewed for feedback by various stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, we celebrate the abilities and embrace the differences of students with special education needs. The government of Dominica has made significant contributions of land, professional expertise, and financial assistance in operation costs to ensure the upkeep for schools who are offering special education, like Alpha Center, an institution which celebrated its 50th anniversary this year. Big congratulations to Alpha Center. However, Mr. Speaker, As far as it's possible, students are part of the normal class. In addition to the classroom teacher, special education needs students have special teachers paid by the government assigned to them. So this children are in class, the teacher is teaching, and they have their special teacher sitting down by them to make sure they understanding what's going on. Where again you get that now? Somebody was asking me that somebody of us they never heard of that model before. Dominica have a lot of excellent practices, you know. Mr. Speaker, all new and renovated schools have wheelchair access and special bathroom facilities for physically challenged students. Mr. Speaker, when parents are told that their baby has a special needs, that is hard. The parents of a child with moderate or severe mental disorder or physical disability find it hard to make sense of the child's feeling and behavior. Mr. Speaker, our special education unit helps these parents to make sense of these feelings and behaviors and to manage them for the best outcome for the child. We hold discussions online to foster dialogue and collaboration between families and educators and to provide parents of children with special education needs psychosocial support and strategies to cope with day-to-day challenges. Mr. Speaker, one night we had over 320 people online. Mr. Speaker, we also had a nurse conference to foster collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, especially to encourage early reporting so that early intervention for those children identified with special education needs can be identified. Training is ongoing to ensure that there's a teacher at every primary school with some training in special education. Mr. Speaker, we plan to work closely with the Ministry of Health through the Adult Education Unit to educate young women on healthy self-management, especially during pregnancy, and to engage them in activities such as reading and singing to their unborn child, because, Mr. Speaker, research shows that this can help build the unborn child's brain power. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education is going after these children while they're still in their mother's belly. Mr. Speaker, we remain committed, it's not jokes, no. We remain committed to the education of all our children and our youth, including those who have special needs in settings that encourage their growth and development. The ministry procured assistive devices and diagnostic tools under the Pearl project at the cost of $130,000. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking about hearing aids, walking stick, special cards and devices for teaching students with autism and more. Mr. Speaker, all this is happening under this Labor administration because we believe that our worth is measured by the way we treat our most vulnerable. Our advocacy as a government has dispelled so many myths. Mr. Speaker, no longer terms such as mumu, tebe, dotish, abebe, efim. No longer are these terms used in our country. I don't know how to translate it. Like when children have physical problems, people used to call them funny names. But you don't hear these words again. We don't hear them. Mr. Speaker, recently, a pronouncement was made by the Prime Minister that the new Thibault Primary School, one of the 6 schools being built with funding from the People's Republic of China, will be the center of excellence for special education. We are glad that work is progressing at amazing speed at this school. Mr. Speaker, Dominica will take much pleasure in owning the fact that we have a center which can offer quality care and education in nurturing one of the most vulnerable groups. This center will also offer the Ministry of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence a platform to expound on our motto, quality education for all. Mr. Speaker, we focus on inclusion, diversity, differentiation as a ministry to ensure that every child succeeds. Mr. Speaker, we cater for the we must cater for the grade 3 child who is reading at grade 6 level. Because this is where we had lapsed in previous times. We were busy trying to bring those who are below level up to level, but those who are above level, we're not doing too much. And the grade K child who can draw a perfect sketch of his pet dog, we have to cater for him. Therefore, we are preparing programs to ensure that our gifted students continue to excel. Mr. Speaker, we have attained universal primary access. All school-age children, primary school-age children in Dominica can attend school. Mr. Speaker, we provide for our students through various safety net programs, transportation, uniform, school transfer fees, school feeding programs, school supplies, net for all, textbook scheme. Mr. Speaker, the integration of technology in the classroom has made steady progress as we prepare our students to actively participate in and contribute to the digital economy. The government of Dominica has invested significantly to improve the development of ICT in education. 100% of schools are involved in online instructions and assessment. Teacher training continues to be implemented to improve the use of technology within the classroom. Mr. Speaker, learning has evolved, and the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us the need to build a resilient education system. The digital transformation of our education system is not optional. We must adapt. We must ready ourselves for what is to come. Mr. Speaker, somewhere in the 90s, there were schools with stars. But I don't know who told the education officer that was a good idea. Mr. Speaker, those stars wasn't for if you're doing well, you know. Those stars were for if you're not performing well. And more stars you have, is worse. That reflect, not true teachers right now? That reflect your worths, your worth. Alas, boy. But Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad that this does not exist anymore. And I want to report that all schools have improved. Some schools can do better, but we're in a better place than where we were last year. Mr. Speaker, there's a little school that used to have more than 1 star in the 90s. And that little school rose to becoming the top performing school in Dominica this year. A school behind God's back. One that we used to call Kakarat, you know Kakarat, when you write down, you are the one to interpret Kakarat, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking about the Penville Primary School. And I want to commend my friend, Miss Solange Basile, the principal, who I know sings without French. Mais oui, monsieur. Je parle un peu français. Oui. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I know Miss Basil well. And I know that she and her parents and teachers, they put in the work. And you know what? I know her parent too. Yes. And he too supported, not only as a parent, but as a past educator. And I want to commend and I want to say, I hope that we can share some of the best practices from that school with other small schools. Because how can you have 4 children in a class? And they are reading at class level. We still have a few cases. 4 children in a class. Mr. Speaker, that was unheard of one time. They throw you that grade 2 with 49. And you have to survive. Mr. Speaker, this year the boys led. And part of this can be... clap for the boys, clap for themselves. Mr. Speaker, part of that is attributed to the online learning and assessment. Since after COVID, we noticed that the boys were excelling. The girls would present assignments, but when the boys give you an assignment, you always have something extra going with it. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot to do, but I think we are getting some things right. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to warn us as adults that we should not shortchange our students in ICT because of our own limitations and inhibitions. It's us that have our problem, not our children. You see, Mr. Speaker, our children are smarter than us in that area. Mr. Speaker, when a 5-year-old can stay upstairs and change the channel on the TV his mother watching downstairs using somebody else's phone, Then we know what time it is. And Mr. Speaker, most of us have to learn and adapt to ICT. But our children were born into ICT. The students who started formal education during COVID-19 were oriented online before they met anybody face to face. Mr. Speaker, when I tell my 7-year-old grandchild, hurry up, you know what answer I get? Granny, I'm not AI, you know. So if you think we're going to sit there and behave because we have our own ideas about online, those children already pass us. Those children pass us long already. So many years now, grade 2 children doing assessment online, and grade 2 children are just about 6 years. And they're doing their thing online. The child is saying to me, Granny, you have to go to the thing and take the pen icon and drag it down. And do this. I said, no, you have to go to your mom because Granny don't understand it too well. You understand what I'm saying? So we must not let those feelings come and bar the thing. Let the thing flow. So, Mr. Speaker, I admonish us to embrace online learning and assessment. I commend those schools who continue to engage their parents online. Schools have 2 and 3 PTAs now, 1 face-to-face and 2 online. So you do the general meeting face-to-face and class meeting online. So we have done too much work, Mr. Speaker, to just let it slide back to pre-COVID days. Now CX is expecting virtual labs, Mr. Speaker. There's a new app that we're going to try to pilot, where the children can do their labs online. They can go to the cupboard, take their chemical. You want to see water on the chemical, you'll see H2O. You have to know your work. Well, Mr. Speaker, and Dominica, Dominica will benefit from £4 million from UNESCO and the European Commission to assist us in establishing policy and national legislation on ethics of artificial intelligence, adopted in November 2021 by the 193 member states of the organization. So we have to safeguard ourselves. As always, Mr. Speaker, and watch directly into the camera, we encourage our students to be careful and to be rid of their digital footprints and make the greatest efforts in being responsible digital citizens. Mr. Speaker, you see we went from 0 to 3 to preschool to primary. Mr. Speaker, I am happy for universal secondary education, which was achieved under this Labour Party. And that means something to me. Mr. Speaker, you don't know that, you know, because your surname Isaac maybe pull you through. But Mr. Speaker, the surname Bonit, B-O-N-I-T, didn't do anything for me. I was not part of the 30% on the selection list. I don't call it no pass list, because many students passed, but we were not selected. There was no space. We heard the story from Honorable Pinard. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, it's one bad experience when you try your best and you watch students who you know who are not doing as well as you on the list and you're not there. Mr. Speaker, but I'm so glad that long before I really understood about God, Jesus loves me. Because my principal called the grammar school principal and said, no. I'll not be able to sleep if that child doesn't get a space. The principal, Mr. Hubert Charles, I can call his name. The principal told Mrs. Deloney, may her soul rest in peace, send the child over. Mrs. Deloney called my guardian and said, I need to do that. They said, go ahead. So the vocational lady walking with me to grammar school. One time she says to me, you speaking to yourself? I said, no, I'm praying. I'm praying. When we got there, Mr. Speaker, I shot so. When you see a shot, you see tall people really taller, much taller than they really are, you know. And the principal have a funny voice. It's as if he whispering, but you hear what he's saying. The principal gave me an interview. Now I'm big. I understand that the principal was enjoying himself interacting with me. But at that time, for me, that was something else. And I just said, I wish he'd just sit down. Anyway, the principal sat down and he knocked his pen on the table. And he speaks to himself. I wonder if I don't get a spot in first form for you, if you could do second form. Mr. Speaker, I say, of course. And that, of course, was loaded, you know, with tears. But I just didn't burst. What guarantee do I have I said, well, I can write good composition, I can read, and I know mathematics. Mr. Speaker, that is still, oh, look at laughing for one thing. That is still the formula for succeeding in school. Not true? If you can write good composition, you can read, and you know mathematics. You don't see I have to become the Minister of Education there. Boy, anyway, Mr. Mr. Speaker, the rest, I was going to the second week in August. I got a letter from grammar school. That's why I ended up in secondary school. Mr. Speaker, be laughing. Well, let me drink some water there because that's making me emotional, you know. But you know, not jokes, you know. Mr. Speaker, you know what? That means for the last almost 20 years, no child in Dominica will have that kind of a story to tell. No child will have that story to tell. Because when you reach secondary school age, even if you're in the hospital having surgery, when September you go to school. As long as you reach that, and Mr. Speaker, that is why these things. What you say now? I don't call you. I don't call you. No. Nobody not gonna have that story to tell again. Because as long as you have the age to go to secondary school, let's go. Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't take that for granted. Because there are many parts of the region, in the Caribbean region, Latin America, and in the world, where there are students who do not have access to secondary school. And I could say and tell you a lot of things, but I have plenty of things there to say, so I roll in. Mr. Speaker, our safety nets extend into secondary school. Transportation, payment of school registration, fees, payment of CXC fees, and more. Mr. Speaker, we saw improvement in regional assessment too. In CSEC, 79% of our students passed 5 or more subjects, an increase of 6% from last year. Dominica received 90 to 100% pass in 13 subjects, 6 of which were TVET subjects. We also received 80 to 89% pass in 9 subjects, 4 of which were TVET subjects. Dominica's overall performance was 78.8%, which is 4.2% above the regional performance. Mr. Speaker, CXC has chosen to release the CXC exam this year in Dominica in August. We wait expectantly to see our children result this year. The 9 secondary schools where children wrote CCSLC also showed improvement. We are getting closer to the 100%. This year, Dominica received 86.8% pass in English and 74.8% pass in maths. The percentages are going up, and that's what matters. And though we should not take comfort in the fact that we are above regional average, makes us feel good. Mr. Speaker, 17 Dominican children made it to the CXC merit list. What that means? That these children came between 1 and 10 in the region. In all countries that write in CXC, this children came between 1 and 10. In CSEC, we have 2 students in physical education and sports and industrial technology building, respectively. In CAPE, 2 students made it in electrical and electronic engineering technology unit 2. In CCSLC, 13 students secured top positions in mathematics, English, and French. The government of Dominica commends the 17 students on their achievements, but I highly commend Anfia Akisha John Charles from San Sauvé, who attends the Cassibru Secondary School, for placing first in the region in CCSLC mathematics and English. San Sauvé. Yes, Mr. Speaker. In 2023, CSEC examination, Dominica received an average of 90% pass in 12 TVET subjects. We are moving closer to our goal in ensuring that every child leaves secondary school with a pass in a TVET subject. So in 2023, 94% of students in government secondary schools left with a pass in at least one TVET subject. Clap for Dominican children. Mr. Speaker, we commend the efforts of our principals, our teachers, parents, and officers I am glad, well, not a good way, I am elated to report that 71 teachers and 6 officers were appointed in this school year. Office, Mr. Speaker, there's plenty room for improvement. But we have seen improvement at some of our secondary schools as a result of the new staffing structure. We encourage schools management to strengthen their pastoral care department. We must know if our students have a roof over their heads, if they have a fine place to sleep, if they have food on their tables and shoes on their feet. We must know what home life is like if we really want to have an impact on the student life. Mr. Speaker, the onus is on all of us, but more so our schools, to teach our children healthy self-management, conflict resolution skills, interpersonal relationship skills, decision-making, problem-solving, negotiating, critical thinking, because we need to ensure that our students are psychosocial competent and ready to be successful adults. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I commend the Portsmouth Secondary School and the Cannabis Secondary School for the work they are doing in this regard. Mr. Speaker, this government articulated a vision for education reform, and therefore greater emphasis was placed on technical vocational training. The Dominica Tibet Council accelerated efforts to ensure that Dominica can issue national vocational certificates that are recognized regionally. Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to report that the inaugural, first ever, National Vocational Certification Award ceremony will be held on the 14th of August, 2024. Mr. Speaker, I commend the Tibet Council and all those who work to ensure we got to this point. We have 600 portfolios from individuals applying for certification at level 1 and 2 in different skills. Our first ceremony will see the first 60 people receiving their certificates, and after this, we will have quarterly ceremonies to certify others based on their portfolio review. Mr. Speaker, we have to follow Cantor standards, and I'm hopeful that in the next budget address, we'll be reporting that we have received authorization by Cantor to issue CVQ certificates. Mr. Speaker, work is progressing satisfactorily on the new Goodwill Secondary, which are another of the 6 schools funded by the People's Republic of China. This school will serve as a center of excellence for technical vocational training. Mr. Speaker, I visited all the sites. There are 45 local people employed at the Goodwill Secondary School, and they still will employ other people as the project moves on. But the interesting thing is that the people have already spent more than $5 million on purchasing materials locally for the project.
28 more minutes.
How many more minutes?
28, 2-8.
No, man, that's not enough. Take a bite for me now.
How much more? That's what I was saying.
Okay, when you get closer. Mr. Speaker, this Center of Excellence will include facilities for training in several skills like auto mechanics, woodwork, garment production, air condition, refrigerating. Oh no, you're distracting me, man. Refrigeration installation and repair, electricity and electronics, home management, among others. We have begun to foster partnership with businesses and organizations so that we can certify skilled workers using what we have, the prior learning assessment and recognition. So there are people who already know how to do things, but they are not certified. So wherever they're working, we will go there to ensure that the standards are followed and they know what the units entail, and then we can assess them on the job and certify them. Mr. Speaker, we continue to support our students to ensure that they build skills to pursue higher learning and to be ready for the world of work. The Dominica State College is making a great effort in collaborating with us for that. Tuition fees at the Dominica State College is of no cost to high school graduates. Mr. Speaker, the Dominica State College was born under this Dominica Labor Administration. And before, Mr. Speaker, college was a special place for 7% of Dominica students. But the Dominica State College is expanding, increasing scope. We are moving from associate degree to include bachelor's degree. We also have short courses and offering in continuing education in skills. Plus, you have the Confucius Classroom, which is exposing students to Chinese language and culture for the past 2 years. And soon, Mr. Speaker, a bachelor's program in medical laboratory technician will be introduced. Mr. Speaker, before, not more than 2 students from Cannabis would be enrolled yearly. And I think maybe it was the same thing for most of the other villages. Mr. Speaker, last year, more than 1,500 students were enrolled in state college. Mr. Speaker, I am sure Cannabis constituency had at least 15. And Mr. Speaker, on July 10th, 365 students graduated from the Dominica State College. And I'm sure Cannabis constituency had 15. 15 is the number. Mr. Speaker, it is only under this Labour Party administration we have seen this record number of students accessing tertiary level education in Dominica. Students are coming from every community, every strata of society. They have the same access. And Mr. Speaker, look, students are now coming from other countries to attend college at Dominica State College. I think that is something to shout about. Mr. Speaker, renovation of Block C at the college was completed at the cost of $1.1 million. The library was reopened in January following renovations and satisfactory air quality test results. Mr. Speaker, now work is presently ongoing on the North Building on Block A and B at the cost of $2.6 million. We thank the Prime Minister especially for his passion about tertiary education and higher learning in Dominica. And we thank our students, our staff, management, and parents and for their patience and support. And the government of Dominica pledge our continued support to the development of the Dominica State College. Mr. Speaker, adult education continues to offer programs also in functional literacy and numeracy and skills. But more than that, we had parenting programs at 4 primary schools and 1 secondary school, and we held block meeting in 2 communities. Mr. Speaker, our people are intelligent, they are doing well, and that is why we continue to pursue our goals for 1 university graduate in each household. I think we passed that already, you know. This financial year, in addition to those that we approved, we paid over $7 million for individuals seeking assistance to pursue tertiary education in various local and regional and international colleges and universities. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we continue to secure scholarships for our students from friendly countries like Cuba, People's Republic of China, Mexico, Morocco, and others. We also facilitate students to pursue scholarship opportunities through the organization as OAS, Commonwealth, and other international agencies. The government continues to award merit-based scholarship to the top performers in each faculty of the Dominica State College. What to do again now? We congratulate all the students who graduated from higher learning institutions. We congratulate our 7 doctors who graduated from different medical schools in Cuba. Mr. Speaker, we continue to find ways to instill in our people a sense of national pride. Several projects were funded by UNESCO to help preserve different aspects of our culture. We've not one in the Kokoi language in Marigot, here. Several programs were also organized by the library in this regard. Work continues on a manual for teaching civics. And during our yearly observation of Heritage Month, we continue to educate our students on our culture, being patriotic, being each other's keeper, and caring for their environment. Mr. Speaker, we collaborated with Solid Waste Management Corporation on the recycling project. Schools were supposed to collect plastic bottles. Mr. Speaker, we collected over 110,000 and all around. We have a problem. People have to learn to stop that littering, you know. Because for us to collect 110,000 empty bottles in bush, in drain, by road, by shop, we can do better than that. So that's why I'm happy for the tax on these sweet drinks. So I hope people will not cut down on using these sweet drinks But I think our environment will be a little happy too, because we'll have less plastic bottles in the environment. Mr. Speaker, I must mention the work done in these areas by the 4-H coordinator under the coordinator, Mr. Bert Paul. Now, Dominica has risen to number 2 in the region in 4-H. Jamaica is the only person who is beating us now. Mr. Speaker, and let me tell you, I'm not saying and talk about young people, because it's the young people, you know, that in that 4-H and all those things there. So I leave that for the Minister of Youth to say her thing. Mr. Speaker, the government of Dominica continues to ensure that our children are provided with modern facilities conducive to teaching and learning. At the Dominica Grammar School, existing structures are being renovated, and work is ongoing on classroom blocks, and administrative blocks, and auditorium, and sporting facility. Mr. Speaker, if once we build in our house and we have to slow down, you know. Sometimes we build in our own house and we have to slow down. We have to slow down because the price, the shipment of materials slow down. If you don't have the block and you have to put up block, you have to wait until you get block. Also, the price of building materials have increased 3 times since we started the grammar school. Mr. Speaker, the cost of skilled laborers, more and more as you need more skilled laborers, you have to pay them more. Changes to organization plan, the plan to increase a football field and a field place for other sports, plus a digital library and other components. This modern state-of-the-art facility will have modern science labs and enhance and improve facilities for teachers when it is complete. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who attended the Dominica Grammar School, when those children will put their hand in assembly and sing, "A school for human eyes," that will mean something. You can. That the greatest of all builders build a school for you. That song, school song, is going to take new meaning after this building is complete. Mr. Speaker, a lot of grammar school people in the house, man. Mr. Speaker, work continues at the other schools funded by the People's Republic of China. Foundation work is ongoing at Bellevue Chopin. Excavation work has begun at Tetmod, and work will soon begin at Calibishi and Sineku. We thank all the parents, teachers, and students in these areas, and we promise in the end, the school you will get will be worth the wait. We thank the People's Republic of China for such a generous contribution to education in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, under the Safe School project, CDMA will spend $200,000 US on fencing at Isaiah Thomas Secondary, Cannabis Secondary, and Massac Primary. And a canopy will be built over the walkway at the Concord Primary as we enhance safety in our schools. Mr. Speaker, the challenges of providing quality education to all children is a formidable one. Therefore, I graciously thank all the countries, organizations, and individuals for your collaboration with the Ministry of Education in this effort. I say thanks for your dedication, your passion, and your belief that every child can succeed. Let's continue to work together to make this vision a reality. I extend deepest gratitude and appreciation to all the officers who work within the Ministry of Education. I also thank PS Privo and PS GIS, principals, parents, and teachers for their commendable work despite our challenges and limitations. Cannabis constituency. Mr. Speaker, the people of Petit Soufrière, Saint-Sauveur, Good Hope, Mopo, Deepa, Tranto, Formel, Cannabis proper, we don't have to follow no kind of news on radio for us to know the impact and the effects and the setback of climate change. You hear me? We don't have to follow no news, we don't have to read nothing. That's in our DNA now. Mr. Speaker, when I was a child, we would have 7 days of rain, and the river wouldn't even look dirty. People pick up their bag and they go and catch crabs and children like that because now it's to bathe in the rain and go inside and wait for Kalalu with crab and dumpling. Mr. Speaker, I didn't even have hunting season that time. There's along rain falling. Along it raining, pick up your bag and go and look for crab. No, Mr. Speaker. With climate change in my constituency, all we need is 1 hour of non-stop shower while the rest of Dominica have been thrown in the sun. And we experience landslide, river overflow in their back, roadblock, even loss of life. And you know what? We need now $4 million to respond. Mr. Speaker, that is why we are ever so grateful to have a government in place with a leader who has mastered the art of dealing with crises and adversities, including natural disasters. Mr. Speaker, though we are still learning, we have come extremely far on implementing preventative measures, interventions, and rehabilitation methods. We extend gratitude to this government for undertaking the $127 million East Coast Road. More than $47.5 million was spent on the Cannabis section, 15 retaining walls, 77 culverts, concrete drains on both sides of the road, 2 bridges. Mr. Speaker, road nice, but it's not just about nice road. It is about the vulnerability issues which have been addressed during this project, like the shelving of the banks and the increased and improved drains and culverts. Mr. Speaker, it is about the safety measures included in this project, like the higher bridges to allow greater flow. So, Mr. Speaker, measures have served well so far because we've seen some rainy days and we had very little to complain about. So we continue to pray that things will go just how they have begun. In addition to feeling and being safer, Mr. Speaker, the Cannabis constituency wins on all counts with this road. $2.7 million was paid to 224 farmers in Cannabis for their land that we use. Farmers receive additional payments for their crop. Several people from the constituency are still employed on segment 2. Travel time has decreased. People are beginning to come again for their fish and their produce and entertainment activity. You always need to Cannabis last Sunday. Savings on the shocks. Savings on shocks and other vehicle parts and tires. Smoother ride for patients on the ambulance. The value of land has increased. And the value and beauty this project brings have improved our image and our self-esteem and improved our sense of belonging and pride. Thank you to this Labour Party administration. Mr. Speaker, we take pride in our Regional Disaster Resource Center, but it's not just standing there waiting for a disaster, you know. Cannabis constituency had a launching of the first student overseas study group on April 22nd. Our overseas students were very happy to be housed in this facility because we transformed the top floor with little cubicles and dressing table. And because, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing that says if you come to a shelter, you can have some privacy, you know. Because if we have a mother who is nursing or a husband and a wife, you can give them a little cubicle, they can lock their door, and you cozy, you don't have to go now when the storm pass. So, Mr. Speaker, so far we've had 3 groups of students, and other groups are expected later on in this year. Mr. Speaker, this has brought some economic opportunities to the area because we have to engage cooks, cleaners, bus drivers. In addition, bars and restaurants are benefiting, and a large percentage of the students' time they spend that visiting tourist attraction sites. So Dominica benefits too. Mr. Speaker, I commend the 17 persons who were trained in shelter management, 19 in ham radio operation, our disaster preparedness groups, our certified emergency respondents team, and Red Cross. Mr. Speaker, the level of seriousness these individuals place on disaster preparedness and management is extraordinary. Mr. Speaker, our next move is to join the Prime Minister in being a voice on the effects of and the impact of climate change. Because, Mr. Speaker, the constituents are angry. Because we were so close to enjoying the upgrading of our playing field. Mr. Speaker, we had the plans to present the design to the community on November 11, 2021. And we experienced a trough on November 6, 2021. Mr. Speaker, you know it is already when there's a natural disaster. All funds are redirected to recovery efforts. Over $4.4 million were spent just to move dirt and create access. So here we are, still waiting for our word of new funds for our playing field. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we have every reason to join our Prime Minister in saying to those developed countries who are contributing to the most to climate change, we not only want the funds that they promise, we deserve more. Because if they give us that fund, I want my funds for my playing field to take out landslide. Mr. Speaker, we are doing our best in disaster preparedness. Therefore, I encourage people to work with the teams and follow when plans are activated. Let me look at the camera because I know you all are looking. If we say time to move, just let us move. Otherwise, all that work, all this group, all this detailed plan, all this nice shelter, that's going to be useless if you choose to stay in an unsafe place and get hurt during a disaster. So when we activate the plan, just move with us. Mr. Speaker, the process of relocation is multi-layered, and it will cost the government more than $20 million, but we are moving forward. Thus far, 11.58 acres of land have been acquired from 8 landowners, and all plans have been submitted to the planning unit for consideration. Construction work should begin in October. Mr. Speaker, aside from the relocation, residential lots were approved for 4 constituents. Mr. Speaker, though our conversation on housing has shifted a little because of the relocation process, construction of 2 houses began under the Government World Bank Housing Recovery Program. Repair works and installation of doors and windows, everybody need a thing, we're setting them up. Hurricane ties distribution still going on this year. So if anybody wants hurricane ties, go and get, because all that on this year. And Mr. Speaker, more than a quarter okay. Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'm going on to NEP. Mr. Speaker, more than $250,000 is paid out in Cannabis constituency for under NEP, the Public Support Assistance Program for beneficiaries over 65 and over. More than $250,000 every month. And families continue to benefit from the funeral grant, the yes we care, and medical assistance. Mr. Speaker, I highly commend the NEP teams and their leaders, Ms. Julia Winston and Ms. Adelina Gasper, for the work they do in the constituency. Mr. Speaker, Dominica saw their quality of work when we worked from Pocase to Roger recently. Everybody was saying, but who working there? Who follows NEP? Scratching of the grass, man. We saw the quality. And Mr. Speaker, the care our elderly receive under the Yes We Care program is remarkable. I express gratitude on behalf of the constituents of Cannabis for the effort this government is making to enhance lives. We are happy that under this new budget, all programs will continue. Mr. Speaker, despite our limitation, our youth continue to excel in sports. We saw improvement in volleyball, basketball, netball as a result of the Saturday training sponsored by Senator Lockhart. In addition to that, we still have rounders and cricket and everything else. Football is on a high. We have 2 teams in the Premier League. United is at 2nd place now, and East Central is now in 3rd place. We have players representing on the national team. We have a group of young players between 10 to 13. And the latest dimension of the football is these supersonic baby strikers. I don't even know their name, no, Mr. Speaker. Baby ballers. That is a group from 5 to 10. So as soon as they reach 10, then they can transition to the 10 to 13 group. And this is a group that is sponsored by the Labor Women Organization. And you know, the parents come. And while the children are playing their football, you know what we do? We have a retired nurse telling us, 1, 2, do that, run around field. Mr. Speaker, you must see me. So we're not just there. So we exercise, we try. You think it's joke? With the parents are there trying to keep fit. In the same thing we discuss. We talk together. And the latest discussion we had is that as soon as school open, we are going to ensure that our 26 baby ballers all have accounts in the school saving union. And we are all going to try to save $1 a week for them. We must get our people into the habit of saving money. I thank Reverend Copel, who's a footballer too, and Leon for helping out there. I commend all our players. So I'd like to mention them because when I go back up, I'm getting close for the rest of the month. You know? But I must make mention of Fabio Drago and Reverend and Randall Copel, Leon Edward, Yannick Vigilant, Alison Gaspar, Chewy and Jerryson, all of them. I go and die when I go up if I miss out some. Mr. Speaker, we also thank all our coaches and trainers who continue to work with the youth of the constituency to keep the sports alive and well. We have a big football activity in Saint-Sauveur in August. Mr. Speaker, our cultural officers who are employed under the NEP program, Ms. Merle Challenger and Ms. Natalia Durant, are doing a splendid job. ensuring that our culture is preserved. Practice for independence already begun at summer school. I want to take the opportunity to thank all those who are engaged in summer school at Cassibru, Saint-Sauveur, and Petit-Soufrière. We want to send high commendation to a 9-year-old child from Cassibru, Omar John Baptiste, who last year received the Young Artist Award in the Independence Celebration. And he's the great-grandson of Mr. Gaspar, who received a Golden Drum Award too, so you know the grandfather passing that down. Mr. Speaker, our students continue to benefit from all safety nets program. I want to congratulate the 24 students from the Cassibru constituency who graduated from high school, 16 graduated from college. We are happy that the results show improvement in literacy and numeracy at both schools. I acknowledge the effort of all the teachers at the Cassibru Primary, Cassibru Secondary, and Saint-Sauveur Primary. We have work to do, but we are not where we used to be. We congratulate our 5 students from Cassibru who graduated from universities abroad, and we pledge our continued support to the other 12 who continue to pursue higher education. Mr. Speaker, we extend warm congratulations to Dr. Lisa Labessiere from Good Hope, who completed studies in medicine in Cuba, and we thank the Labour Party administration for supporting her, our doctor. Mr. Speaker, the health workers, we can't let their effort go by. They are making a big effort to provide wonderful health care in Cassibru. The youth officers, we cannot leave them out, and we want to encourage all our youth to take advantage of all programs. They're not taking enough advantage of that. And Mr. Speaker, last year, 13 of our students graduated from college. All 13 of them are working. Oh, look up then. All 13 of them are working. I congratulate the 5 women who operate in the Vectiva nursery in Saint-Sauveur. Not only are they providing plants to constituents to use in soil conservation, but they're also selling plants. You don't want to hear the price. I'm happy that some of our farmers, they try the white potatoes, and they're excited about growing. Mr. Speaker, we see an increase in coconut oil, castor oil, people producing oil, increase in goat and pig rearing, in poultry, and bay oil continues to sell, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. On behalf of the Petit-Soufrière people, I commend the women who continue to generate income from the sale of vegetables and potted plants. Congratulations to the cassava growers on the value you have added to this produce by beautifully packaging your farine. Our farmers continue to benefit from programs, and they make a great effort. But those agoutis really trouble them this year. We look forward to a better year next year and to continue our farm roads. You know, I tell them what to do the good already, you know. I commend our fishermen who are always ready to help in times of disaster. We are all happy that the landing site at Saint-Sauveur will be enhanced under this budget. Mr. Speaker, we are glad that in this budget, the water problem in Cassibru will be addressed under the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan. Mr. Speaker, I am also happy that we will see the completion of the Saint-Sauveur Health Center, the Good Hope to Saint-Sauveur Road, additional classroom at the Cassibru Secondary School, and the police station. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to look in the camera and speak to the almost 220 young people we have involved in sport. Work was not done on our field and our court, but it wasn't because your pal rep wasn't fighting. It wasn't because your pal rep wasn't pushing. Your pal rep continues to fight and push on your behalf. In the meantime, let us take care of what we have. Continue to practice hard. Continue to play hard. Continue to win hard. Continue to beat them up hard. God will make a way, and when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. So, Mr. Speaker, I am hopeful that favorable consideration will be given to improve our basketball court and our playing field. We invite all of you to join the Cassibru family reunion next year, start planning. And as I close, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank God who gives more grace when the burden gets heavier. I want to thank all those who are helping in the baby ballers football team, because not easy. We live in our home early and we go down field, when we come back, no water. So all our work there for us to do and no water. I want to thank also KK's Garment. I think Karina David is the name, for sponsoring the uniform for the ballers. And she even gave me some for the trainers. I thank her very much for her support. I want to thank my love and the rest of the family for all you do to help me. Oh, my love. The people of the Cannabis constituency for all their love and prayers and support. My church and prayer warriors, the Labor Rights and Friends group both here and abroad. All the party groups, Petit Superior Sansover, Good Hope, Roseau, Cannabis, and the Diaspora group. And the constituency executive will make it happen for me. The LYO who adds youthful energy and life to the constituency. I want to thank Mr. Amanda Clark for holding down the office. The LWO who gave me the courage. The elderlies who are always praying for their pal, their prime minister and their government. Senator Lockhart and Mr. Johnson Drago who are always there. And I thank the Prime Minister and the Dominican Labour Party for giving me the opportunity to serve at this level. Mr. Speaker, I thank my cabinet colleagues. Let's remain steadfast. Our Father God has blessed us with what I call pop-up ability. Let us sink in your spirit, man. Accept the pop-up ability what God has put in you. So when they press you down there, you just pop it up on that side in their face. Accept the pop-up ability that God has given you. And when they think they're pressing you on one side, they're not seeing you pop up on the next side, in their face. Mr. Speaker, though we may be troubled on every side, but we are not distressed. And we may be perplexed, but we are not in despair. We may be persecuted, but we are not forsaken. We may be cast down, but we are not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4, verses 8 and 9. Mr. Speaker, I support this budget. May God make the provision for our mission. May He bless us with the resources that we need so that they can materialize. And in Jesus' name, we say it shall come to pass because God will provide. God bless us individually and collectively. Our faces are different, our needs are different, but He's well able to supply all our needs according to His riches in glory. Hallelujah. Tonight, God bless us. God bless Dominica. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Roll,
Yes,
you
thank
are
you, Mr. Speaker.
recognized. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I see everybody looking for the podium, but you have to project your voice.
Yes.
That's a little obstacle.
Yeah, Mr.
So
Speaker.
ensure that you project your voice.
That's not a problem, Mr.
Yeah.
Speaker.
Because, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me just say a good night to you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say a good night to all of my parliamentary colleagues and the listening and viewing public. Mr. Speaker, my task here this evening has just gotten 10 times harder after hearing such a spirited contribution by the Minister for Education, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll try a thing. Mr. Speaker, it's with great pride and conviction that I stand before you today to support this 2024-2025 budget presented by the Honorable Minister for Finance. The theme of this year's budget, partnering to build a platform for sustainable growth and development, encapsulates a collective vision for a resilient and prosperous Dominica. Now, Mr. Speaker, I've been following the budget debate over the last couple of days, and today I was sad to hear Senator Paris say that the private sector is disappearing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I consider that to be a total departure from the reality, this reality in Dominica. And what he has effectively done is totally disregard the many small businesses that have emerged over the last couple of years. And Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking to Archie's Printry and Architectural Designs, Amari's Home Decor, The Watering Can, La Gressa Bella, Life is Beautiful Motors, Rocky's Electrical Services, Grease Punky Mechanics, Generation Honey. And Mr. Speaker, right in Marigot, we have La Petite Bistro. Mr. Speaker, I thought he said he had eyes. How come he didn't see that? And Mr. Speaker, even with La Petite Bistro, they have even expanded. I don't know when last you've been to the airport, Mr. Speaker, but they're there in the airport as well. So contrary to what he is saying, Mr. Speaker, I don't see a disappearing private sector. I see a private sector that is growing. And Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to continue, I have names there, you know. And that's names I just wrote tonight there. There are a lot of businesses in Dominica that have started, that are growing, and that are expanding and contributing to the economic development of our country. So, and Mr. Speaker, you know, I know where that type of rhetoric came out from, you know. That sounds to me like somebody who was sitting on Facebook and probably saw a few business closures and decided that that was an entire economy and that was an entire private sector. And Mr. Speaker, that quite frankly to me, that's reckless. That's reckless, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also heard Senator Paris speak about us criticizing young people. And I took total offense to that. Because the truth is, Mr. Speaker, it is him and his party are the ones who criticize our young people. Every day, Mr. Speaker, they're on the radio talking about, oh, young people must open their eyes, and oh, the young people are doing this and that, criticizing our young people. But what they fail to realize, Mr. Speaker, is that the young people have no time for rubbish. And they stand firmly with the Dominican Labour Party, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I delve into the specifics of the budget, because, you know, let me get back to the reason why I'm here, it is crucial to put it in the context. So allow me to speak directly to my generation, which is probably the start of the I want it now era. Yes, we want to see things happen, and we want to see things happen quickly, and we want things to turn, Mr. Speaker. We want to see things turning. But we must not forget from where we came and the catastrophic events that have struck our nation in 2015 and 2017. These natural disasters were unprecedented in their devastation, affecting every aspect of our society and economy. And Mr. Speaker, for the member of Marigot to be so careless in his rhetoric and to compare our progress to that of St. Kitts, Antigua, and St. Lucia overlooks completely the unique challenges that we have faced and continue to overcome. Mr. Speaker, this is a necessary reminder because it is necessary to appreciate the strides that we have made. And I feel compelled to do so because while we may want to see the renovation of more playing fields and we may want more nightlife and we may want more things for teenagers to do, and bear in mind all of these things are coming, Mr. Speaker, but as Honorable Henderson reminded us yesterday, we have spent millions of dollars in recovery efforts over the years, much more than any other OECS country. Yet still, notwithstanding the hand that we were dealt, we are moving forward and swiftly at that, Mr. Speaker. So here it is. We're fixing, we are building, and we're still paying for recovery all at the same time, Mr. Speaker. And I think that, you know, as a younger generation, we need to be a bit more patient, have a bit more patience, Mr. Speaker. We need to become aware. And we also need to appreciate the progress made by this Dominican Labour Party administration. Mr. Speaker, like our Prime Minister always says, we need to look at the glass half full and not half empty. Mr. Speaker, the 2024-2025 budget clearly demonstrates progress. There is evidence of progress in the advancements in education, with initiatives aimed at enhancing our educational infrastructure and curricula to better prepare our youth for the future. There's support for small business development. And Mr. Speaker, one of the standout features of this budget is a significant allocation for our international airport and other infrastructural developments. Our roads, our bridges, ports, and airports are the lifelines of our economy. And by investing in modern, resilient infrastructure, we are not only improving the interconnectivity within our nation, but also enhancing our competitiveness on a global stage. Mr. Speaker, diving into the budget, we see an allocation of $17.7 million for the commencement of works on the Loubier to Grand Bay Road. This investment is a significant step towards the sustainable development of communities in the South. And, you know, we know of the usual benefits of a road rehabilitation, you know, improved signage, better drains, lighting, safety features, etc. But we also know that Granby is renowned for its vibrant cultural heritage and rich traditions. That's right. And by enhancing accessibility, Mr. Speaker, we will open up new prospects for tourism, attracting visitors who will contribute to the economy and celebrate this unique aspect of our culture. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm not just saying that for saying its sake, you know. I've seen firsthand what an improved road network can do. Ask any one of the tour guys on the Lai River doing river tubing, Mr. Speaker, and they will tell you that this past season was their best season in a long time. And, Mr. Speaker, this is directly related to the completion of the road between the Hillsborough Bridge and the York Valley Bridge. I might have to translate that, Honorable Anderson. But, Mr. Speaker, look at just today, Mr. Speaker. We had Disney in port. During the off-season, I might add. And we had fellows working, tour guides working 3 full tours on the river today, Mr. Speaker. This road has brought immediate returns to the tourism sector and the livelihoods of young men in the communities of Layu, Taru, and St. Joseph. And I must, Mr. Speaker, I must once again register my commendation to Honorable Lloyd for seeing this project to its completion, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, just to further underscore the importance of a modern road network, we will not be talking about geothermal and hotels and cable cars in the Roseau Valley had it not been for this government who completed the Roseau Valley Rehabilitation Project. Mr. Speaker, I remember being a young fellow. I remember on a rainy day, rain falling, and you have to go to Trafalgar. And before you go to Trafalgar, you have to say a prayer before you pass under Cabanis there. Mr. Speaker, right now, people don't even know about that. But today, we see huge pieces of equipment, Mr. Speaker, going up there at ease. Equipment that will be used for the further transformation and development of our dynamic Dominica. Mr. Speaker, that is what you call vision and foresight. Now, Mr. Speaker, anyone who knows me well knows that I like to talk about DYBT, and I must speak about DYBT, the Dominica Youth Business Trust, and its vital role that it plays in supporting entrepreneurs in Dominica. Celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, alongside the 20th anniversary of our Honorable Prime Minister's service, the DYBT remains a cornerstone of youth entrepreneurship. This budget allocation of $200,000 for the trust underscores this government's commitment to the advancement and strengthening of the organization and to the young entrepreneurs of Dominica by extension. Over the last financial year, we've hosted several training programs targeting entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 to 35, and we've successfully trained over 50 of them. The high demand for these programs underscores the strong interest in entrepreneurial development among our youth, despite what others may say, Mr. Speaker. Notably this year, we were able to introduce a program or a training on AI for business, Mr. Speaker, preparing our youth for the future. Mr. Speaker, the interconnectedness of government programs and projects is evident in the success stories emerging from the DYBT. Mr. Speaker, for instance, we have a client, right? He is employed at the Dominica Grammar School, a CBI-funded project, where he has developed skills as a steel bender. He came to the DYBT, he did training in entrepreneurial development. We have supported him in the development of his business plan. And today, he is in the process of applying for financing to open his own steel bending business. Mr. Speaker, this is just one example of how DYBT continues to positively impact the lives of our young people, providing them with skills and the support needed to thrive as entrepreneurs. Now, Mr. Speaker, many times you hear young people complain about things are slow, business is slow. You hear people talking about the economy this and the economy that. But in reality, Mr. Speaker, one thing we've learned is that one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs face is the fact that not many people know that they exist. And if people don't know you exist, then that will have a direct impact on your sales. So while people are there blaming economy and economy this and economy that, really what needs to be done by a lot of these entrepreneurs is put more effort into making themselves more known. Mr. Speaker, to address the challenge of visibility faced by many entrepreneurs, the Trust hosted a first-of-its-kind caterer showcase, giving nearly 10 young caterers the chance to present their business to over 50 public and private sector entities. Mr. Speaker, that gave them the opportunity to go head-to-head with more established entities in the sector. The $200,000 allocation to the DYBT will ensure more opportunities like this, facilitating greater exposure to our young entrepreneurs. And it would be remiss of me if I did not place on record my heartfelt thanks to our Prime Minister and our Ministers for Youth. We have two of them just because youth, sports, and culture is so important, Mr. Speaker, for their unwavering support to the Trust. I also wish to thank the incredible team for which I have the honor and privilege to lead at DYBT. Now, Mr. Speaker, when our dear visionary Prime Minister speaks, I tend to listen attentively. And back in December of 2022, when our Prime Minister announced his new cabinet at the last election, he made mention of the matter of young men in crisis and the need to connect with them and find solutions to their issues. His words inspired the development of a project that the DYBT launched in May, the regional EU-funded initiative titled Fostering a Supportive Network Towards Empowering Youth Towards Stronger Economic Development. Yeah, very long title. Mr. Speaker, this project aims to harness the energy of our youth, engaging them in productive activities and supporting their contributions to societal development. And what is particularly noteworthy is that out of the 100 at-risk youth the project is targeting, approximately 60% will be male participants, Mr. Speaker. And through training and mentorship, the project seeks to create economic opportunities and jobs for vulnerable and at-risk youth, thereby helping them to reduce unemployment levels. Now, most importantly, Mr. Speaker, we understand that this is a unique demographic, and therefore we have taken a considerable amount of time to develop a specialized curriculum. Because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, you cannot come there and think that it's a traditional training setting where you have a blackboard or projector and you're going over slides. Mr. Speaker, that will not work. You could well imagine how high your attrition rate would be. But what we've decided to do and what we're doing is that we are incorporating a lot of gamification. How do you add different games to ensure that people are engaged, as well as a lot of hands-on activities, Mr. Speaker, just to ensure that we do not lose their attention. And we are optimistic that in the coming months, this initiative will take flight and begin to positively impact the many lives of our young people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to education. Mr. Speaker, in the area of education, no other government has made a significant impact as this DLP administration. Evidence of this administration's commitment to education is on full display today. Just take a look at the many primary and secondary schools currently under construction across Dominica and the provisions made for them in this financial year. In excess of $93 million budgeted between the recurrent and capital expenditure. Mr. Speaker, modern schools are essential as we advance our nation, providing children with state-of-the-art facilities and resources to enhance their experiences. And a prime example of this is the Goodwill Secondary School, which, as I understand it, Mr. Speaker, is poised to become a center of excellence, Mr. Speaker. These investments show a resounding dedication to providing the quality education for all, ensuring a bright future for our children and our nation. Now, Mr. Speaker, while on the topic of education, you'd be surprised if I told you that I consider myself a proud beneficiary of the Cuban Scholarship Program. Now, you might be wondering, how is this possible? Mr. Speaker, I've never been to Cuba before. Do I know Spanish, Mr. Speaker? Poquito, just a little bit. But I, a regular, everyday citizen, benefit from the expertise of my dentist, Dr. Shannon John, who is a Cuban-trained doctor, who is also a recipient of the scholarship program. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you about those Cuban-trained doctors. Their pride is unmistakably reflected in their graduates, and they have the same pride and attention to detail that artists have when they make their masterpiece, Mr. Speaker. And I bring this up because this is the broader perspective that we need to take when considering development and benefits derived from investments in education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my dentist is one small example. We have many specialists at the hospitals, teachers at our schools, technical officers in ministries, that all of us Dominicans benefit from daily. So truth be told, Mr. Speaker, we are all scholarship beneficiaries. The skills and knowledge our students gain from international education programs enhance our communities and country. And the impact can be seen across all sectors. Over the years, we've sent countless Dominicans overseas to pursue university degrees in various fields, demonstrating a dedication to nurturing future leaders, innovators, and professionals of our nation. These opportunities have empowered our youth to acquire knowledge and skills that are essential for the development and progress of Dominica. And actually, Mr. Speaker, some of these very leaders sit in this chamber here today. Now, while some may express concern about the occasional delays in payments, government payments, I believe that these are minor hurdles compared to the immense benefit that one student gains. I mean, at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, they obtain a degree. Just look at the United States, Mr. Speaker. Student debt is a major issue, often burdening graduates with financial stress for many years. Here in Dominica, our government-funded education assistance not only relieves our students from the weight of crippling debt, but also provides them with the freedom to focus on their studies and their career aspirations. By investing in education, we are not just helping individuals succeed, but we are building a stronger, more capable nation. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, as we move rapidly into the future, leveraging the digital economy and adopting digital tools will be of critical success to any business venture. And we see here, just last week, as was mentioned prior, over $900,000 distributed amongst 77 local entrepreneurs. And Mr. Speaker, this marks even more progress towards a digitally empowered and resilient business environment, Mr. Speaker. Such interventions will surely revolutionize the way local businesses operate and enhance their efficiency and competitiveness, and of course, their overall success. Mr. Speaker, we cannot look at these and take these things lightly, Mr. Speaker, because here it is that a government is providing funding to a young entrepreneur to support them in accessing digital tools. And what digital tools have done is make life easier for people. So imagine you have purchased QuickBooks. Now, one of the challenges that we face in Dominica, especially when it comes to young entrepreneurs, is that of accounting. People will tell you they don't take records, they don't know the financial position of their business, but through this program and having the ability to procure such a powerful tool, Mr. Speaker, we are really setting up a lot of these businesses for major success, Mr. Speaker. Major success. Because you don't have to be an accountant to work QuickBooks. You put in information and you're able to read the reports. So this is how we are empowering our business community and supporting a thriving business environment, Mr. Speaker. And at the end of the day, embracing technology is what will enable our entrepreneurs to work smarter and not harder. And we are grateful, Mr. Speaker, to have a leader and a government that recognizes this. The automation of routine tasks, data-driven decision-making, and streamlined operations will free up valuable time and resources. And this shift will not only increase productivity, but also open up to new avenues of innovation and growth. Now, Mr. Speaker, this next point, I debated for a long time whether or not I was going to present it, because this next point is on geothermal. And after hearing Honorable Henderson in this House for successive parliamentary sessions, it feels like what more could you say about geothermal that hasn't been said already? But, Mr. Speaker, I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to try a thing, Mr. Speaker. I did a little bit of research, and, just permit me to look a bit down the road as to what the possibilities of geothermal may look like. Now, through my research, I learned that El Salvador has leveraged geothermal energy to mine nearly 474 Bitcoin since 2021. This innovative use of renewable energy has added approximately $29 million to their national treasury, demonstrating a novel intersection of technology and sustainability. This forward-thinking approach can serve as a model for us here in Dominica. Imagine the possibilities if we too could harness our abundant geothermal resources for such an innovative venture. Not only would this solidify our energy independence, but it could also open up for new economic avenues, attracting technological investments and placing Dominica on the map as a leader in renewable energy innovation. And this is yet another reason why I support the nearly $30 million allocated for the development of geothermal in this fiscal year, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Henderson? Idea? Thank you. I have to ask, Now, Mr. Speaker, I turn to the international airport. Have to. The international airport will most certainly be a game changer for Dominica. And it will serve as a gateway to unparalleled opportunities and driving economic growth. And this is why I support the approximately $400 million allocated for its continued development. Mr. Speaker, just 2 weeks ago, I was in the United States, and I was having a discussion with a gentleman, and a Caucasian. So you know how the story goes, where you're from, you say Dominica, they ask you if you're Spanish, that kind of thing. But surprisingly, Mr. Speaker, when I said I was from Dominica, he knew where Dominica was. He knew about Dominica. And not Dominican Republic, Mr. Speaker, the Commonwealth of Dominica. And interestingly enough, he expressed to me that Dominica was on his bucket list of places that he wanted to visit. So I asked him, how you heard about Dominica? Actually, that was from Travel and Leisure. So what that tells me, Mr. Speaker, is that there's an interest. However, he did mention that he heard that flying to Dominica was a bit of a challenge. So for me, this reaffirmed two crucial points. One, Dominica is a much sought-after destination. And two, the construction of our international airport is absolutely necessary, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, we are at a defining moment in our history as we move swiftly towards the realization of our dynamic Dominica. Soon, we will talk about what Dominica was like before the international airport and what Dominica is like now that we have an international airport. And in those future conversations, we will speak of direct flights from major tourism markets such as the United States, Canada, and Europe. We will speak of increased arrivals leading to more employment opportunities in hotels, restaurants, and tour companies. We will speak of greater attendance, international attendance at our festivals.
5 more minutes, 5 more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah,
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Honorable Senator be given an additional 10 minutes to finish his presentation.
Mr. I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the Senator, the Honorable Philip, be given an additional 10 minutes. Honorable Roll, Senator Roll, you are given an additional, sorry. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Yes. Senator, you're given an additional 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate it greatly. Now, Mr. Speaker, like I was saying, greater attendance at our festivals such as the World Creole Music Festival, Carnival, and this helps us promoting our heritage on a larger scale. And, Mr. Speaker, just a short thing about Creole Festival. I find, too many times you hear people in the general public on social media, Dominicans bashing our Creole Music Festival, thinking that they're hurting the government or the Prime Minister or the Minister of Tourism. But, Mr. Speaker, what they're really doing and who they're really hurting is the tour operators, the vendors, the taxi drivers, the makeup artists, and the whole list of stakeholders that Honorable Charles mentioned earlier. So I think that's something that we have to pay a bit more attention to and really speak more highly of our festivals and speak with pride of our festivals, because I think very soon we'll be picking up a Caribbean Music Award for Best Festival, Mr. Speaker. But also, Mr. Speaker, just to get back to this, you'll also hear of people flying down to sample some of the best medicinal cannabis products in the region. Now, Mr. Speaker, while I may not have the same energy as our former colleague of blessed memory, Honorable Ed Regis, I want to end on a bit of a high note. And I must place on record my strong support for the announcement made by the Minister of Finance of the engagement of a legal draftsperson to work on legislation for the cannabis industry and the establishment of a cannabis authority. The establishment of a cannabis authority underscores this government's commitment to developing a legal medicinal cannabis industry that is safe, effective, and beneficial. Now, one of the most compelling reasons to support the establishment of an authority is the medicinal benefits of cannabis, especially for patients suffering from serious illnesses like cancer. What this announcement means is that soon, the patient at home suffering from loss of appetite, nausea, pain, following treatment, will have access to medical cannabis to alleviate some of their ailments. Now, some might be saying, well, I can get my oils already, I get my oils under the table, and while that may be true, by regulating the cannabis industry, the authority will ensure that the very same products, the very same patients will have safe, reliable access to high quality and consistent medicinal cannabis. And this will bring much needed relief to those who are suffering and support their treatment and recovery process. And Mr. Speaker, not to mention the revenue that you can generate from such an industry, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that the Cannabis Authority is a forward-thinking policy that will benefit our nation in many ways. And I commend this government for such a bold vision. Hey, I didn't need the 10 minutes after all. Mr. Speaker, In conclusion, as I reflect on the theme of this year's budget, partnering to build the platform for sustainable growth and development, it is evident that all hands on deck are needed to yield positive results. The initiatives presented by the Honorable Minister for Finance clearly articulate our commitment to sustainable progress. This Dominican Labour Party administration has consistently worked towards building a resilient and prosperous nation. Our focus on leveraging technology, enhancing education, and fostering economic growth through major infrastructural projects underscores our dedication to the people of Dominica. And we are paving a way for a brighter future, where every citizen can thrive and contribute to the nation's development. And Mr. Speaker, at no time will we ever let the backstabbers among us lead the rest of us. As we continue to move forward, let us remain united in our efforts to build a strong foundation for sustainable growth. Let's also remember the importance of community resilience and faith. As we enter the most active part of this hurricane season, I ask for God's continued protection over our country. May we be spared from any harm and remain steadfast in our journey towards progress and prosperity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for affording me the opportunity to make this brief contribution this evening. God bless. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this Honorable House be adjourned to Wednesday, 31st July at 10 a.m.
Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that this House be adjourned until Wednesday, 31st of July at 10 a.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, 31st July 2024.